Convening the meeting of the Raleigh Conservation Commission. This meeting of the Raleigh Conservation Commission is hereby called to order under authority of MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, the Town of Raleigh's Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and the Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw. This is also a dual meeting of the Open Space Committee as appointed by the Town of Raleigh Board of Selectmen. And I'll call the roll for attending. Dave DeMonaco.
Here.
Bob Garner.
Here.
Jim Keys is presently absent. Sam Strife.
Here.
Kurt Turner.
Here.
Doug Watson.
Here.
Chairing, and we have a quorum present, Mr. Chairman.
Not being quite 7:45. Administrative things?
Yes.
Yes.
I didn't know whether this is appropriate or not, but it struck me that today is a significant day in regards to the events in Boston, and it's the anniversary of an act of terrorism that was vested upon the citizens of Boston and surrounding communities. And I didn't know if the board would support a brief moment of silence to memorialize the people whose lives were lost, as well as the people in the community whose lives have been disrupted by this wanton act of violence.
I think that's an excellent idea, a moment of silence. Thank you.
Yes, I do. Administrative requests, if I may, request approval of payroll. And for your review, hour sheet.
Circulating that payroll, I would like to read for the record the letter we find in our submissions here, which is from the Town of Raleigh Board of Selectmen to Mr. Bazelak and to his wife. The Board of Selectmen wishes to extend their gratitude to you both for the voluntary cleanup work that you do year after year in honor of Earth Day. In this case, it was at the Hunsley Hills location. Your efforts and environmentalism are very much appreciated by the board and the residents of Raleigh, and to that I would add, appreciated by this commission. Thank you, Brent.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also received a bill for the from Horsley and Witten for they're putting together the second review, which they've already submitted to the commission.
Right, this was the...
This is drawn from funds that were previously submitted by the applicant for the
Right.
notice of intent.
Yep, $750. Assistant.
For your initialing their invoice. And they are scheduled to attend and present their lives.
Right.
Also distributed tonight was copies of postcard that is being mailed to the residents of the town of Essex County Greenbelt.
I have.
Didn't I pass it out?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
This one, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So, in case anyone hasn't heard, the Girl Scouts of Eastern Massachusetts, who own what conservatively is expressed as a 187-acre parcel, but it may actually, once it's appropriately surveyed, may be 206, which is what the Geographic Information System says it actually is the extent of it. Scheduled a walk and introduction to the property, co-sponsored by the Raleigh Board of Selectmen and Essex County Greenbelt, to be held on April 26th at 2 p.m. This would be a meeting at the parking lot of the Girl Scout camp, which I believe in the past was called Pentacook, I think. And that's at 390 Weathersfield Street. There's a sign there that says the center, I believe, is what the signage says. I wanted to inquire whether the Conservation Commission would be interested in trying to schedule a cleanup and celebration of Earth Day for portions of the Pingree Farm Conservation Area that's accessed off of the Oxford Road parking lot. I've identified an area in the woods there that has some scattered metal debris, small appliances, cook pots, and stuff left over apparently from when there was a more extensive farm dump on the property. It would be kind of a minimal kind of thing. It wouldn't require any heavy lifting or anything else like that, but I didn't know if, rather in celebration of Earth Day, the Conservation Commission might try to schedule some of us, as well as maybe some volunteers, to just do a brief cleanup there.
What day do you have in mind? Do you have a day in mind?
That the same day as this
Same
walk,
day.
just in the morning.
Okay.
I don't know whether that would be making the day too crowded or whatever.
Saturday, April 26th, we were talking about. Unfortunately, speaking for myself, will be out of town on that day, and actually out of the country, but I think it's an excellent idea. Easy for me to say since I can't go. Would anyone like to speak up in support of it who can go?
I'll reserve some time. What time are you thinking about?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock?
Yeah, there's not a huge amount of material there, but I would be grateful for some assistance, and I would estimate that it would only be approximately 2 hours, which wouldn't make it too disruptive of a person's schedule.
If I don't have a
The-
soccer game, I'll be there.
So,
It's a good
Pingree
idea.
Farm off of Haverhill Street?
Boxford Road.
Oxford
I
Road.
believe the address is 129. There's a small kiosk in a parking area there. It's past the two residences on the right-hand side when you pull into Boxford Road, and then you come to this little gravel pulling area that's got a kiosk kind of hidden, and you'll see a big metal gate
Okay.
that controls the farm road access to the fields that are cultivated usually by the hares.
And where's this area relative to the gate?
Just a short distance in, when you look past the gate, you see alder shrubs on either side for approximately 50 feet, and then it's farmed field for approximately 150 feet, and right directly in the woods.
Oh,
If you look across, there's a little bowl, a little depression. It's probably one of those glacial pothole remnants.
Is it
from-
wet?
Hmm?
Is it wet?
No,
No?
no, it's not wet.
Right.
No,
Okay.
there's it's probably about as big as 3 times this room, scattered stuff. And there's a couple places on the property also where kids toss their
Right.
beer cans
Oh.
and stuff, so
Yeah, there was that.
It's usually good to do a little bit of that.
10 a.m.
Yeah,
Can I recruit an 11-year-old?
absolutely.
And all his friends.
Well, her friends, perhaps. I don't know if I can get my son to do it. He might be playing soccer.
Thank you very much. I'll get an announcement out.
That'd be great.
So we can also
And two
get-
members of the public, anyone who would like to help with that, is certainly welcome.
Yeah, I've been in that neighborhood, so I would be more than welcome to help.
Oh, great, thank you.
Like, I would keep from my house,
All right, so, being 7:45, this is the first item on the agenda, which this is a new notice of intent for 42 Newbury Road. This is the legal notice of Raleigh Conservation Commission, general laws, in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, General Laws 131, Section 40, as amended, and the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw. A public hearing will be held on Tuesday, April 15th, 2014, at 7:45 p.m. at the Town Hall Annex, 39 Central Street, to consider a notice of intent application filed by John E. Sullivan for proposed construction of a subsurface sewage disposal system, possibly within the 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands and the DEP-approved groundwater protection area Zone 2, all at 42 Newbury Road, map 5, parcel 40 in Raleigh. And let's see, you're here on that.
Oh, thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Dan Johnson. I was hired by John Sullivan, the owner here, to upgrade his failing septic system at 42 Newbury Road. Presently, right now, there's an existing structure there comprised of mini garages, office, workshop, and stuff like that. Right now, the septic system is basically within the 100-foot buffer zone. The wetland was flagged, as Brent said, but it's technically not on the property.
Right.
And so it was flagged, and then the 100-foot buffer zone is delineated here in purple.
Okay.
And what we did last year is we did a couple soil tests within this area to eventually know that we're going to upgrade the system. And as a result, we ended up installing a new septic tank and pump chamber. Groundwater is very shallow, very good sand and gravel. It is all within the zone. All this work is within the Zone 2 groundwater aquifer. The septic tank, the pump chamber, and the leaching area, as delineated by this wetland, is all out of the 100-foot buffer zone. There are will be work within the 100-foot buffer zone, mainly the building sewer, which presently exists there, to the old cesspool, will be going to the new septic tank. And right now, these two black lines, you have a water and electric that kind of bisect right down the middle. Those will be rerouted also around there. Again, those are basically the only work that will be done within the 100-foot buffer zone. The good news is at least the leaching area is out of the 100-foot buffer zone, but still within the Zone 2 groundwater protection area.
Have you seen Brent's memo?
Yes, I have, yeah.
Where's the catch basin that he refers to?
It's right here, and as the note said, that catch basin is being removed.
Yeah.
The Board of Health has reviewed and approved the septic plan also, just for your information at this point. Any questions or?
The roof runoff system, can you just point it out on the plan so we can visualize?
The downspouts are pretty much,
I believe when my father installed it, all there is a big bed of stone down and around the building. So basically, it's kind of like a
Puts it in a drain.
perimeter drain type system.
Yeah,
So it runs down and diffuses on its own.
okay. And
So
are
that-
there downspouts or no? It's
Yes.
just straight roof runoff. Okay, where are the downspouts?
I assume right on the corner.
Right on the corners
Yeah,
and one
each don't know,
each end of the
each
building.
end,
On this
right.
side?
in one dead center.
Oh, okay. Great. And you understand that because the BVW line is not on the property, that we have to affirmatively state
Mhm.
that we're not making a determination about its validity.
That is correct.
have you gone over with Mr. Johnson the conditions for Zone 2, for the examples that are given in the memo, or the spill containment kit and the,
I personally have not,
Limited
other than
use
we
of-
both just read it literally as we came in.
Okay.
In fact, John asked me if I looked at it, I read
Yeah.
it. Well,
any issues with that, Mr. Sullivan?
No, not at all.
Or is it-
Nope, not at all.
Essentially, we're just trying to keep rock salt out of the.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's no problem. As long as they get so much sun there, there's never any problem with ice anyway, so.
All the questions I have, other commissioners? Brent, anything you want to add to your thorough memo?
No, thank you.
it was very thorough.
That's Brent. Okay, any questions by commissioners? Anything you want to add, Mr. Sullivan?
No?
Anybody else have anything to add? No? Okay, then I think what we'd be looking for is to close the public hearing and issue a motion to close the public hearing and issue an order of conditions with conditions typical for a project within Zone 2, as well as the standard conditions for replacement sewage disposal system project in the buffer zone. Do I have a motion? And a second? Second by Dave. All in favor? Aye, and all against. You guys are all set?
Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Take care now. Thank you.
We're a little early. Are we expecting Mr. Abuzara?
Yeah,
We are.
yeah.
Well, let's see, what else can we do? At least getting delayed. Is Mr. Vogel here? Is one of you Mr. Vogel? You're Mr. Vogel, hi, welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for coming by. And if you have any questions about what we're doing, just, make a note or keep them in mind. We'll try to address them after the meeting or when we're all done here.
Okay, no, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
If I could, since
Yeah.
we do have a few minutes, it came to my attention that in regards to the postcard invite that was being mailed around to ask folks to come actually get acquainted with the possible acquisition of the Girl Scout property, that the Conservation Commission, if you are in support of that effort, to preserve that significant open space, that if the commission might so consider a motion to definitively go on the record for their support for the potential acquisition of that property based on the extensive amount of natural resources as well as the geographic proximity of the area and its potential for not only providing passive recreation and open space, but also a recreation area where the summer camp exists, which may possibly be reconstituted or rejuvenated, since there are apparently some interested parties that are willing to discuss with the town running programs there and offering opportunities to the town's residents and children to participate in a more active camp-type environment.
I think the sense of the commission would be supportive of that. I do think I should ask you, Kurt, are you in the butter?
Yep.
You are, okay, so you would not want to participate in that or anything else?
Going to call for a vote, I was planning to abstain.
Okay. And just speaking for myself, I certainly totally support it. I think we have gone on the record as supporting the concept, but now we have an actual proposal and a town meeting article. And I would look for a motion to support the town meeting article and the acquisition for the reasons stated by Brent.
So moved.
Yep, and is there a second?
Second.
And all in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
And it passes with one abstention.
Alice, do you happen to know, Saeed Abuzara came in and spoke to me the other day and indicated he would be attending, but,
So far as I know, he was gonna be here.
okay.
Okay. There he is.
And here he is.
And here he is.
You folks may wish to come on up.
Okay.
Come on up, we're ready for you if you're ready. So this is the, good evening. This is the 8 o'clock item on the agenda, which is a new request for certificate of compliance. 63-549, 28 Cindy Lane, map 6, parcel 10, lot 9, Abuzara Family Trust. And we have Mr. Abuzara here, welcome, and
Good
you
evening.
are, your name, I'm correct?
Elizabeth Wallace, Hayes Engineering.
Elizabeth Wallace, that's right. And Mrs. Abuzara, that's right, I did see you come in too. So, we have a memo from Mr. Baselak, you both have seen it, I would presume?
Yes, we
Okay.
have.
Brent, anything you want to, before we get started, anything you want to add to your very thorough and lengthy memo?
Well, I've had basically 3 phone calls, 2 from Mr. David Clark, working for Mr. Abuzar, as well as Mr. Abuzar came and stopped and talked to me. And we went over item by item a lot of the identified concerns and issues. In response to some things, which again, nothing has been further submitted to the Commission's office to address any of these things. Some of these deficiencies, I did suggest that there might be consideration to the preparation of an affidavit. One example would be for the reinstallation of the 4x4 treated posts with signs. It's not an effective use of my time, nor, or it could possibly be perceived that I am vandalizing an applicant's property by attempting to extract the post to see whether it's been actually dug and embedded down to the proper depth in order not to be heaved by frost action. So I suggested that the reinstallation, once the person, Mr. Clark, was clear on what the criteria was, that possibly he should prepare an affidavit stating that he actually embedded the posts at least 32 to 48 inches below the surface of the ground in order to achieve depth. The other situation that was not addressed by the Hayes Engineering firm or their as-built plans was the installation of the subsurface dry wells. And I suggested that the firm TW Excavating, who I was led to believe did the installation, that they would possibly be able to prepare an affidavit kind of giving us some criteria as to where they were located, as well as the fact that they were installed in appropriate 2 feet above existing groundwater on the site, so that they will effectively function. Since they have, I'm told they've been installed, there's downspout couplings going into the ground that seem to indicate that they are in the ground, but of course we have, nothing's been submitted so far that witnesses or testifies to that. So I suggested the preparation of an affidavit in those 2 instances so far to make an attempt to cure some of the issues and concerns in regards.
So where do we stand on those? That seems to be the most serious issue here, is the location of that.
Go ahead.
Well, have they actually, they've been installed, right?
You mean the dry wells?
Yeah.
They they were installed in, well, I showed him the papers when we bought them and we paid for them, and we had a letter from TW Excavation. They were installed with pipes going into them and out of them.
Okay.
And we do have those papers. I think I gave you those.
You gave me copies, yes.
Yeah.
So
I can interject briefly here. The problem was that they gave no clue as to the actual location or the fact that they were installed 2 feet above ground level.
Well, yeah, that is the problem. This is a letter from TW Excavating confirming that 2 dry wells were installed around 9/21/12 as per the site plan provided. So, can they amplify on this? Can they tell us that they were installed
When I spoke
with the separation from the groundwater and so
Yeah.
forth?
When I spoke with Mr. Paisley, he asked me to do that,
Yeah.
and I will do that. And this is the delivery of those dry wells to
Yeah.
the site, and it was COD, which I did pay,
Yeah,
and we do have them indeed there. He wanted an affidavit, I will be getting that affidavit to him.
okay,
Right, the concern here is that the final approved plan that was
right.
actually referenced in the order of conditions shows the 2 subsurface dry wells being underneath the driveway, which is on the opposite side of the structure from where I believe they were actually installed.
Okay, so there's 2 problems here. We don't have proof of where they are, but maybe Mr. Warren,
Well, right, I
Oh,
figured he
Mr.
could
Warren can,
include some kind of reference in his
Yep.
affidavit.
but then the as-built plan needs to reflect the reality of it, because, I mean, the concern I have about this, and I'm sure you share this, Brent, is it's an affidavit from TW Excavating. It's not an as-built plan from an engineering firm, which is what we need.
Right, and any possible future concerns of a homeowner to rectify some type of problem in functioning of the dry wells, they won't have any idea of where to possibly begin
Right.
their search for
Which is why
where
we,
the issue is.
which is why we require as-built.
I could show you on the plan where they are.
Okay. But is this where they are shown on the plan?
Well, the plan from Hayes Engineering did not depict them
Here,
at all.
that is their engineering plan, they were installed here in the house, and we have here pipes, spouts can come in and go out here. And we have another one here where it goes this way.
Right, but isn't the problem if, I mean, I'm just trying to figure it out here, isn't the problem that the as-built plan doesn't show them where they are?
Yes.
Which is correct.
That is correct.
Okay, so are you have enough, you of Hayes Engineering have enough information to submit a revised plan with the engineering stamp on it that shows where Mr. Warren says they are?
Thanks.
Because
Um,
that's what we need. You gotta have that.
Yes, it is my understanding that, there is, a bit of site work that's going to, either has been done or will be done. And, when all the work is complete, we'll go out with our survey crew and, locate everything
Okay.
and, have a more complete as-built plan. And that will be submitted to Brent.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead.
I did speak with Mr. Peter Ogren, and he asked us to say the following, and let me say it. He said, if you could approve the certificate of compliance, and you don't give it to us, if you approve it tonight, and you give it to Mr. Paisley, and when he is satisfied with the work we are doing, the way he wants it to be done, then he could give it to us. And I thank you for what you could do.
Well, there's a lot of things on this list.
As well as there's some potential violations that are ongoing right now. And in regards to corrective actions, since we're talking about items, I would suggest that the next item to talk about is the fact that there was supposed to have been a surface drain inlet located on the, forgive me, I'm just gonna have to open up the plan because I believe there's a possibility that it got installed backwards because the dry wells got switched to the opposite side of the house, and I believe the dry wells have an overflow that connects into the subsurface drain that replaced the grassed swale, which was originally proposed at the rear of the property. So that being said, over off of the driveway, which was predisposed to be shedding, due to its topography, to be shedding water towards the rear wetland system, which this subsurface drain, or originally the grass swale, was designed to pick up sheet flow coming off of the landscaped turf grass area that was presumed to be at the rear of the driveway. There has not been a surface drain inlet installed, and this actually happens to be in one of the pictures here. It's referenced by the fact that not only can you see an area that had kind of minimal ponded watering in it, but when the water reached a critical height and overflowed the rear slope of the lawn, it started to cause gully erosion, or a slight minor rill, and it's all because there was supposed to be a surface drain inlet to catch the water coming off the driveway and off the lawn at that point. I scaled it off to be in approximately 20 feet in from where the outlet is currently installed at the abutting side property boundary. And there's my north arrow, and that is the eastern side of the property. So it also happens to be where the area of mounted snow was. Now, for whatever reason, when the field verification and survey work was being done by Hayes Engineering, they, for whatever reason, knew to look for 3 drains, but they only survey located 2 drains. And they appeared to make a statement in their letter making a presumption that they thought the 3rd drain was underneath the snow pile, which, if it had been correctly located, that would have been a good educated guess. But they apparently didn't traverse the backyard far enough, because the 3rd drain is actually over on the opposite side and approximately 20 feet in from the western side boundary, because I believe it was installed there because the overflow from the subsurface dry wells, which was to go into the grass swale, comes in and I believe intersects the subsurface drain pipe at that location. So that's the photograph of the rectangular surface drain that has my clipboard. Yes, the chairman has it right in front of him. The other 2 drains are circular, about 6-inch, maybe 8-inch diameter inlets. So there, if I could just finish here, that was a requirement of both our order of conditions as well as previously required by the soil suitability
Soil
permit
suitability thing.
that was issued for the site.
That's always been on this site.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Would I see?
Is the snow pile still there?
No, the snow pile is basically gone, as you can see in my photograph, but you can see the area where water was ponded and where the debris is, but that could also be subject to corrective action by the installation of a new drain, but it would require some excavation. But I think it's doable, just as a guess, since the drain is not far beneath the surface.
Right.
I would say with great appreciation to Mr. Bezlak. He spent 1 whole hour with me yesterday telling me how to correct the work. I would like to say I hired people who are well knowledgeable with the town of Rowley, like unit construction, who is doing a lot of work in Rowley, and a very trustful person. He did the best, but the best didn't satisfy us. I spent time with Mr. Bezlak Monday, and if you see in green, he told me what to do. He wanted to have here some sort of a small CP, a catch basin, so that it catches all the water to come into this swale,
Right.
which is highly appreciated. And with regard to the gutters, he said, do some trenching here, and the rest of it will go this. I thank him very much for all he did and spent a whole hour with me doing that. And the question, we are here because we have a buyer, and the bank of the buyer said we cannot consider the loan unless you have a certificate of compliance, and that's why we are here.
So you can't do
I
they won't do a
appreciate-
holdback?
I'm sorry?
They won't do a holdback or something along those lines? They don't seem to want to discuss that?
That is where we are.
Yeah.
So it is up to you, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
I just want to briefly make sure and state for the record, I appreciate Mr. Abu Zara's enthusiasm and praise for my efforts, but I cannot order or
No,
direct
of course not.
Mr. Abu Zara to do anything.
No, no.
I made what I felt were appropriate
Get it.
suggestions based on the requirements of the permits that govern that project. He is perfectly free to seek other ways of infiltrating his roof runoff or curing his surface runoff problems or whatever, but that, I just want to make sure everybody understands that I did not issue orders or directives. I just tried to appropriately.
Well,
counsel.
I mean, 20, let's see if I got this right, 16 and 11, 27 correction items, some of which involve excavation and installation of missing drains, so they're not minor items. That seems to me like a lot to accomplish in less than 3 weeks. And, you know, I mean, I read this memo which you generated, Brent generated about 10 days ago. So I read it then, and I've just reviewed it. You know, my thought when I read it was that there was no way that you could get that done in substantially less than the time you have. But Brent, you're more familiar with the conditions on the ground than I am. I'm not opposed in principle to the notion of granting the certificate of compliance subject to your field verification of correction of all of these issues and submission of an corrected as-built plan to your satisfaction. I mean, we try to work with people.
I appreciate
But that just, I'm not sure how realistic it is with this kind of a laundry list.
Well, either way, I think it would have to be a partial certificate of compliance, number one.
No.
Because there are some issues, well, there will be some things that as much as they want to and can do work immediately, because the work involves excavation, there is not going to be the opportunity within the short period of time for full vegetative cover to be
Right.
reestablished, so to speak. So there's going to be some areas of soil disturbance. There already were some areas that had sparse vegetative cover. I guess I would suggest, yes, there appears to be some things which more than likely within the next 10 to 14 days could be appropriately handled. I guess I would seek the commission's weighing in on, you know, what they see as priorities, and, you know, obviously it appears that there are some things that, like I said, given approximately 10 days, it seems one could accomplish a number of these things, but then it's kind of out of both our hands and the applicant's hands as far as what possibly Hayes Engineering, what their turnaround time is in doing revisions to the as-built plan and getting it in here. There were some requests for further information. There was a lack of specificity in regards to square footages of like the impervious areas on the site, and you know, how much they possibly changed, either increased or decreased as opposed to what was originally approved. There certainly is the issue that I hope the commission would agree with me that it has a high priority, and that is the dumping and the mounding of debris that occurred in the no-cut, no-disturbance area.
Well, yeah, I was coming to that.
As
But-
well as the fact that at this point in time, there could possibly be a partial removal of the decaying hay bales and a refreshing of the embedded silt fence line so that it stays operational. And since there's going to be some more soil disturbance, and there already has been soil disturbance right next to the erosion control line, I think that at a minimum, the temporary silt fence should be reestablished as being effective and should stay there while the posts are reset and appropriately embedded, and while in anticipation that a new subsurface drain, surface drain inlet by the end of the driveway is probably going to be reinstalled, as well as the correction of the rilling, the erosion that was taking place at the edge of the lawn there. So the silt fence should definitely remain in place, but there are decaying hay bales in there which certainly could be removed, and which would allow a better regrading of where the no-cut, no-disturb posts have gone in. And if the applicant so chooses to put in the post and rail fence that's also required, you know, that could certainly be done at the same time. But I guess I would seek a little guidance, you know, from the commission in regards to the priority items, and I certainly would be amenable to being directed that the commission could issue a vote for a partial certificate of compliance contingent upon proper field verification of the work to occur on the site, and with the submittal, as we've discussed, of affidavits and revised plans to take care of some of those other issues.
Is that realistic for Hayes Engineering to accomplish the parts of this that are Hayes' responsibility within, I mean, obviously there's at some point you can do it, but what Mr. Arbuzar is saying is he's looking to do that in substantially less than 21 days, because if it were 21 days, we'd just do it at the next meeting. So.
Well, it all depends on when on the work.
Yeah, you can't go out and survey the new drain if it's not
Let me
installed.
answer this. The gutters will be put on this Friday.
Okay.
The grading and the CP to put it behind the driveway, he wants to do it this week. I said, wait till we meet with the Conservation Commission. He can come anytime. And by Wednesday of next week, the grading and the gutters will be all in, and we can get you an affidavit from TW Excavation that where they put it.
You're getting it not just for us, but for them,
For
so
you.
that you
Right.
folks can
Yeah.
put it on your as-built
Yeah.
with it.
We can have it by next week, Friday, not this week, Friday. Almost all the work is done. The question of, we couldn't put those marks in the four monuments because we tried to put them. The soil was still frozen. So we went about 18 inches and we couldn't get any more. So those will be done as well.
Okay, but given that as it seems like an optimistic but possibly realistic schedule, that doesn't leave Hayes Engineering very much time to do their field work and revise their plan. And I'm just trying to get a sense of whether this is a realistic thing to try to do.
It's true enough. I think we'd like to make the effort,
Okay.
if the commission allows.
All right, I suppose that's your best answer.
I mean, technically, the commission incurs no
We don't.
It's no detriment to this because.
No, we
Yeah.
we lose a little control over it because we delegate it to you, but I think, speaking for myself, I'm always comfortable doing that. And I'd like to hear from any other commissioners on their thoughts on this.
My only question is, without answering that, do you have ledge underneath this property?
I'm sorry,
Do you have stone ledge underneath this
a
property?
stone ledge,
Yes,
we had no ledge there.
none there.
But we have the crushed stone according to the requirement of the building inspector. Everything he asked us to do, and he inspected the foundation beforehand.
No, I think.
No, I was just wondering whether those posts are hitting ledge rather than your ice that you're talking
No,
about.
the soil was frozen when we put them, so we have to go about to 30 inches, we went about 18 inches.
But otherwise, I have no problems with what's being suggested.
Other commissioners have any concerns about it? No?
No?
Well, I think then that's probably the best we can do for you. I'm a little skeptical that you'll be able to bring this off, but we'll let you try. And if not, we'll see you in 3 weeks and see where we stand then. But I think what then I would be looking for, Brent, if this makes sense, is a motion for a partial certificate. It's gonna have to be a partial because of the vegetation issues. Motion to issue a partial certificate of compliance conditioned upon field verification by the agent of compliance with these conditions in the memo and submission of an as-built plan reflecting all of that.
Yeah, and the affidavits too.
And the affidavits in support of that, all pretty much in accordance with these discussions.
That sounds right.
I mean, if I may,
Yeah.
for just to let the commission know what my priority is. My priority is that there be no ongoing detrimental impact based on the incomplete status of the property.
Well, yeah,
i.e.
absolutely.
the lack of the surface drain and therefore
Right.
the erosion of the runoff, the fact that the outlet of that subsurface drain system was a third to a quarter obstructed and didn't have proper crushed stone velocity bed at the outlet, so it wouldn't drain very well anyway because it was blocked. The scattered excavate that was possibly in the no cut, no disturb from the post, because the excavate wasn't carried away, it was just spread and left there. The dumping that's in the no cut, no disturb zone. I mean, those types of things that are, those would be what I would say my priority would be in trying to work with the applicant to see if they get addressed, because they're causing harm and a detrimental impact
Right.
in their incomplete or unfinished state.
So do I have a motion for a partial, motion to issue a partial certificate of compliance with the stated conditions?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against. Great, well, good luck.
Thank you so much.
We will, we'll
Thank
do our
you.
best to work with you on this. And if it's not in compliance, we'll certainly put you on for the next agenda and we'll deal with it then, 3 weeks from now.
I'm gonna go get a blank paper and
Okay. Yep.
Wasn't sure how this was on the board, so I didn't know what to have.
As far as the vegetation, can't hurt to get a bias. Whoever's in here, they'll make sure it stays great. You know, well, actually be a little bit of time before that happens.
I suppose it's the right season to be prompted.
Yep.
Could I have a look at those pictures?
Sure.
Thank you.
I believe Ms. Wallace, you received.
I received
those,
them,
right?
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Certainly. Pardon me?
Brent?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am, that's right.
I have copies of a detail of our proposed stone drain that goes in the front of the house for the commission's
Oh,
review.
rooftop infiltration
The roof.
area?
Right, this
Right,
is,
and this?
this is the front,
Yep,
that's the back.
okay.
If you need more copies, let me know.
Could I have a copy of it?
I'll give you a copy, yeah. I gave all the copies there.
Well, we really probably only need two here. These are all multiple. Or does the commission want to do at this point in time?
Nope.
So,
I'll keep
two.
This is for
One to take out and get wet with me, one to keep dry in the office.
It does calculations today.
And so this is the result of the advice to have it appropriately sized for that contributory area of roof?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
very good.
And what you see, the diagram is how the roof is laid out, and the flows, the arrows represent the flows, the direction of the runoff,
Okay,
and the location of the trench, and the calculations as to how many sorry, of the runoff, how many inches it.
right, but this is only for the portion of the roof that couldn't be picked up by installation of gutters and downspouts.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
I'm going to have to ask you to do one thing for me.
Yes.
It's not signed, dated, or stamped by
Okay.
anyone, to give me some comfortable feeling in regards to the calculations.
Very good.
If you could possibly do that and have a hard copy with the actual signature, but
I
you can
will.
send me a PDF ahead of time
Very good, I will.
to expedite things. Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Bye.
Not that I doubt anything, but I can't do those calculations myself.
No, no.
Should I ask you that? Who's the builder on that house? Is it Clark?
Yeah, Jeff and David Clark, Clark Associates, well, they built it at a period of time and only constructed the shell and didn't do any of the interior work.
Okay.
And I don't have firsthand knowledge, but I speculate it was to keep the Clark brothers building something and to show that it wasn't just a desolate vacant lot in the attempts to help get it to move in a
Market it.
relatively down real estate market. And it sat for a number of years without having a lot of the associated site work wasn't necessarily done on it. Apparently with the recent upturn in folks looking for residences, they got a taker, so I don't really know. I'm
Yeah,
making an assumption that the inside has been,
Well, yeah, I mean,
at least finished drywalled
so
and
they've
stuff.
got an occupancy permit coming, so
Yeah.
one would hope. It just seems, usually Jeff Clark does the site work a little more attentively than that.
Well, they actually
Yeah, but
subcontract the site
Yeah, but
work, and I
just a little surprised that he wasn't keeping a closer finger on it, but if there was that long, you're right, that long gap in
I think they were
time.
only hired to get the foundation in and do the frame and do the exterior and stuff and the shell, so to speak, and I don't really know that, because it was a fair amount of time before any site work
I
was done.
think what you're saying is that it wasn't really, they didn't have real control of it.
Right,
Right.
they left the site for a long period, and so things
Well-
that
Yeah.
they would normally have done, they weren't doing, so, yeah.
Well, he might also just contract with the framing and the building
Some,
and sub the grounds
Yeah, it's just normally his work is, doesn't have surface drains on the wrong side of the lot, you know?
Well,
Just saying. Kind of a big
It
oversight.
actually, if you're familiar with the site, it actually makes sense.
Does it?
In order to achieve a 2-foot separation of your dry wells from estimated high groundwater, you could not put them underneath the driveway. The driveway is probably only itself 16 to 22 inches above estimated high groundwater in that area. So the other side of the property where there's fill mounding put up to match the structure, since it has a garage under situation, probably made more sense where they did install it. It was curious to me, since it appeared that the deck had been on there for a substantial period of time, that the deck was left off of the as-built plan.
Yeah, well, that's an easy one to fix, but still.
Yeah.
All right, well, moving on. So this is the 8:15 item. This is a new item, a review of the proposed conservation restriction for the Brad Street Farm Conservation Area land off Main Street, Lot A, map 26, parcel 26, lot 1. Conservation Commission owned by Town of Rowley. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody.
Good to see you.
It's good to see everyone again, and it's a real pleasure to be back here in Rowley again, too. My name is Bob Ford from Mass Audubon, as you know, I think, most of you anyway.
Yeah.
I think it's appropriate for me to start out by saying thank you on behalf of myself and Mass Audubon for considering us to hold the CR on this kind of what we would call hallmark property.
Right. Well, we were pleased to choose you.
Thank you.
You've seen Brent's memo?
I have.
Okay. And I think it incorporates Attorney Pickett's comments, which are very brief.
Yep.
Which is always gratifying.
I was happy as
Council
well.
doesn't pick it apart. So, Brent, the best place to start, just work our way down the memo
Yeah,
items, I think.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I read the CR, I found nothing in it besides what Brent has listed. I don't know if
Yeah.
other commissioners have items that they want to bring up. If so, we'll certainly get to those as well.
I think all of Brent's comments are fine, and we would agree with them, so if you'd like
Okay.
to go through them, that's fine too.
Sure. So the first one is the fences and lines point about the community garden fencing. That strikes me as a pretty reasonable amendment. Doesn't seem to change the intensity of the use, just more of a definitional thing, so we don't accidentally do something that violates the CR that wasn't intentional.
I think it's perfectly fine, and what I would do with each of these recommendations that he's proposed is I would, because we're at the very beginning stages of forming a final draft and
Right.
working together to do it.
Yep.
What I would do is I would take your thoughts tonight and his thoughts and put in language that reflects that. And share it with Brent, and I'm sure he would share it with all of you and make sure it accurately, represents what your concerns are.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah, so just to clarify, so the anticipation there is on page 5 of 22, where we have,
C exceptions.
and this is under exceptions to otherwise prohibited acts and uses. Under 9, agricultural fields and community gardens, the language would be inserted in there
Yes.
that allowed for fencing around the established and approved community garden plots.
Yep, that
And-
sounds good.
And also, non-permanent black plastic water supply lines, since that seems to be the direction the community garden is going, at least this year,
Good.
for water supply.
And I could also, within the spirit of not being too restrictive, I could also put in some other language that might expand on that in the future if expansion is necessary or other devices are necessary. We
You mean
could
that-
talk about that.
You mean like controlling the garden area? Yeah.
Or the uses within the garden area,
Okay.
the devices used to, as part of gardening.
Okay.
These kinds of lines, there might be some other language I could suggest that would be helpful too,
Okay.
in addition to what Brent has done.
Which actually brings us to the second item, B in item 9, which is the use of fueled lawn and power equipment. maybe lawnmowers isn't gonna come up so often, but rototillers will, and even small tractors and delivery vehicles. So I think being specific that those are allowed, but on a limited basis and on a no storage, no parking basis, seems like a real good suggestion from Brent.
Seems a little too restrictive to me. If you've got a project that requires 2 days to complete, keeping one of those pieces of equipment overnight there seems reasonable. You know, rather than have to truck something on and truck something off, a lot of these people, and all of these people for the most part, are amateurs with gardening and aren't going to be familiar with this kind of terms, even if a sign is posted. It's apt to be ignored, so I would prefer something a little more loose.
Well, may I mention a counterpoint to that? Because
Sure.
we will, not to give away the surprise for you later on in the agenda tonight, but we will be discussing a lawnmower and a rototiller that have been there since November. Now, the community garden folks, when I say community garden folks, I'm referring to George Pasenko and Barry Moore, who have done the bulk of the volunteer effort in trying to coordinate and manage things out there, are not happy with abandoned power equipment being left there. The Agricultural Commission is not happy with abandoned power equipment being there. And as much as we want to not be restrictive, I think we also have to be precautionary in that anything that can have gasoline or oil in it has the potential to be vandalized, to be tipped over, to be stomped on by folks who don't necessarily have the same respect for property and values that we have. And that is a totally unmanaged, unregulated, unvisually watched area. And apparently that's the reason the lawnmower may be out there, because it doesn't have a carburetor and an air filter on it anymore, and hasn't had one since November, yet it's still out there. Now, I'm certainly, I understand Commissioner Turner's concern, but I believe that most of the folks who garden out there do not necessarily own power equipment themselves, and normally what I've heard they've done, and there's people's little tear-off call things on the bulletin board out there, call me to get your plot rototilled. So normally they call somebody who comes out, rototills their plot, because they're only 20 by 20, or they've got 2 adjoining ones, that seems to be about the biggest, at 20 by 40. And they get that all done by whoever it is they hire, it comes and does it, and then the guy loads his rototiller back up. I don't know why this one appeared out there.
Somebody's just dumping it.
Well,
No,
and
they're
that,
not dumping
they're
it.
not dumping it. I
That
think
was a
it's-
rototiller that was used last spring, and I suspect that the people that own it did not have either A, the means to always transport it immediately, or B, they did not have the space to put it on their own property or something like that. I know exactly which pieces of equipment Brent's talking about. And I have a very difficult time as having used a plot there, and knowing the people that do use plots is saying that you can't leave a piece of equipment out there overnight. Conversely, I agree, what happened was totally out of line. So,
Well,
I think there needs to be some compromise.
Yeah, I think there's an easy way.
right, so I think if you said a week,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't go out there that much,
Yeah.
but I do go out there, I try to go out there quarterly at a minimum. And again, just because of issues like this, just to make sure
Yeah.
that there isn't anything that's going to be subject to a fuel spill or something like that. Because they just have no way to appropriately take care of it.
I was gonna suggest 72 hours, but I think a week would be also reasonable. You just don't want storage there all summer.
Right. Well,
Or
of
Or
course, all
especially
winter.
all winter. The winter is even,
Well, there ought to be some sort of requirement also, and I don't know what needs to be specified in a document, but, in this kind of document, that anything left there for more than 3 weeks gets taken to the dump. Or, by one of the, and if you can identify who the owner is, charge them for pickup and dumping.
Well, I actually was gonna suggest, suggest later on tonight that I coordinate and see if I could gain the assistance of the highway department. The highway department, I believe, has a fair amount of room on their property that isn't necessarily going to be detrimentally impacted by the small items that are out there right now, being transported down to the highway department garage. And then I post a notice on the bulletin board saying that, this piece of equipment has been transported to the highway department and is available for you to reclaim or pick up. And just leave it at that, because.
I just put a general notice up there.
Well, the
saying
Agriculture
that-
Commission tells me that they have already, that they supposedly did that.
Put up a notice.
Then,
Or
I
use
mean,
whatever
saying-
method of communications
Yeah.
they have with the
I'm
folks
just-
who have garden
yeah,
plots
okay,
there
I'm just
about the
saying-
equipment out there.
I'm just saying,
Well,
you
right.
know, if equipment is left here longer than a week, it will be at the highway department garage.
So,
Yeah, something,
maybe if there's a.
whoever
yeah.
says it, doesn't matter, it's
Right.
just
Does this
one
all
of the
make sense
standing
to
rules.
Greenbelt, to you guys?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely would be.
Okay.
It's fine.
I mean, Audubon, what did I say, Greenbelt?
We're all part of the same family.
Yeah, you know, the other.
I've been called worse
The other
things.
Audubon, right.
Greenbelt
So
and cypress.
the only thing that I have to say about that is regardless of whether it's left over there a night or a week, if you're concerned about eyesores, or if you're concerned about the environment from a standpoint of, pollution, then it doesn't matter if it's left there for 24 hours or not. If it's gonna leak and it's gonna spurt oil or anything like that, it's problematic if you leave that there at all, even overnight,
Right.
Well, yes, but Dave, the opposite side of that is that you're not gonna till that land without some type of influence.
Yeah, I understand
So
that,
it's-
but I mean, for the time that you're
Nobody
there.
has a
and
horse anymore,
Yeah,
Well,
or a plow.
people do, but.
Well, yeah, that-
Well,
they don't have
was-
plows, yeah.
It was clear from my discussions with the folks actively involved in watching over the community garden and trying to manage it or whatever, that it was never anticipated in their frame of reference that equipment would be left there.
sure,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
And they just never, ever thought that that would be happening.
If they did, they would have a structure there or something like that.
Well, yeah.
Perhaps,
let's-
you know.
yeah,
That's not good.
We don't wanna go there.
Exactly.
But, and
Exactly.
the problem is, the logical thing to do is prohibit all power equipment, and that's, as Sam just said, that's not gonna work.
I don't
No,
know,
you're gonna
and
need
I'm
that.
not suggesting that. I'm
And I
suggesting-
never, and that
Yeah,
was never
nobody
my
wants-
intent
Right.
to
nobody
suggest that
wants-
either, it's
Yeah.
just that equipment
All
being
right.
left and quote-unquote
Well,
stored or just left
Well, the fact is,
unsupervised.
it's idle equipment, and so it
Right.
needs to be moved. It's
Right.
no longer
That is the
need,
point.
yeah, it
You
doesn't need to
come
be
in, you do
used
your
at this
thing, you
point.
get out,
Yeah.
in and out, and that's it. And that should be easily done within an 8-hour day.
Well,
And I
it's
can-
not, no, it actually
people,
isn't.
people don't have rototillers, they may have a friend run around, or somebody that can bring one to the site and pick it up on a second day or a third day. I mean, it's just practical, those kind of things happen.
No. But the week, a week or 10 days or whatever you folks say, that certainly sounds appropriate, and that's certainly manageable in terms of my being able to go over there and see whether it's still there.
So let's move on to number 3, which is the hunting and fishing, or fishing and fowling item. Brent, I've read it a couple of times, and I'm sure it's just me, but is the suggestion in your memo that we would consider prohibiting fishing and fowling not just in the salt marsh, but also in the non-tidal portions?
No, actually, I'm sorry, I probably did, first off, for whatever reason, I picked up the fishing and fouling, I think it has to do with the colonial,
Or it does, yeah.
yeah, type thing, so what I was trying to say was number one, I don't believe we should contemplate or have a reason to restrict duck hunting from the salt marsh. Now, I don't know how anybody else feels about that. I thought there was some type of, that your ability to traverse the tidal lands from colonial stature had to do with fishing and fouling.
Well, that's the
You're
intertidal zone.
you're the attorney in the group here, so you can probably help me out with whether
What zone-
I've got
yeah,
a
you
mistake.
just said the intertidal zone.
Right.
So we're talking about,
You're talking about upland areas near the, I mean, let's talk about hunting on this property. If that's something that the town would like to see occur there, that's perfectly fine. We could include that in the restriction.
Well, I was actually gonna say, I was trying to get two thoughts here.
Okay,
That duck hunting and stuff down in the salt marsh
yeah,
didn't seem to put any type of risk, but having it occur in the coastal forest or in the upland fields, especially with the recreational parcel going to be developed next door and the community garden folks there,
right.
that seemed to be an area where, in fact, hunting should be prohibited, just in terms of safety and the fact that we want people to walk down the fields. We've had the Boy Scouts do a loop trail in the coastal oak forest there, and so that would be putting people at risk who weren't aware of what times of year were hunting season or.
I think
or
that's
whatever.
why I didn't specifically include a provision about allowing hunting on this property. We do it in all of our CRs mostly, unless there's sensitive areas like this when there are people interacting, the public's interacting with the property. You may want a more refined ability to allow hunting by permission only at certain times, and at the same time by blocking off the public's access to the property, so there's no risk of injury to anybody during the hunting process if you're hunting for wildlife control or what have you. So I didn't put that in here specifically because I wanted this conversation to evolve. It's not because we have any issue with allowing hunting
Sure,
in
I
our
understand.
conservation restrictions.
because that's the second point you bring up, which is wildlife control, deer harvesting and things like that.
Right.
That's different from just recreational duck hunting.
Right, and that's certainly something we can consider here, if that's something that you might be interested in having as an option. I don't think that paragraph is in here, but I do have a paragraph that we've used before, which contemplates hunting to control nuisance wildlife. And it's done under very specific terms and conditions.
I'd like to see that language and think about whether that's something we want. I'm
Okay.
certainly open to the discussion.
And just to footnote things here, Rowley already does have a municipal bylaw that requires selectmen approval for hunting on any town property.
Okay, so that would
And
cover
so the
here.
normal,
Yeah.
for a conservation area,
That makes sense.
under custody and care of the ConCom, the protocol, if someone does request to the selectman's office
That's right.
permission to hunt, that request is turned over to us for the commission to deliberate on. And in fact, we've performed, the commission has had me and the selectmen have had me perform an analysis as to where residences are,
Right.
500 foot,
Sure.
you know, from,
From a
so,
residence, yeah.
but again, it really seems that the portion of this property that is terrestrial and not tidal or subject to tidal action of the salt marsh possibly could be handled a little differently. The town's bylaw, by right, even though it's municipal property, if it's salt marsh or whatever, for duck hunting, there is no need to request approval. It says that
Okay.
that is allowed, even though it may be municipal property.
So current Rowley law is duck hunting is allowed without
in the
permission.
In the marsh.
In the marsh
It says
part.
hunting in the marshes, I think is how it puts it.
Okay.
Does that override posting by a property owner that no hunting is allowed? on
Well,
that
again, we're
property?
talking municipal property, I'm not gonna, I can't
No,
comment on
no,
private property.
because what Kurt's, this is a CR, so this is effectively private property. We can put any conditions on it that we all agree upon. It's just that if we do nothing, the bylaw is going to control anyway because it's municipal property.
One of the things that concerns me is what you said, Brent, about these developed hiking trails in there, and public will be invited to use that at their leisure, and it seems to me a blanket prohibition against hunting would be preferable. I don't imagine the deer are smart enough to say, hey, let's all go over there, because they can't shoot us over there.
But they might.
You need to cull a herd.
They might.
There's lots of places you can cull them.
No, it's not just that, that might be their preferred habitat. I mean, deer are funny that way. Right now, their preferred habitat is everybody's backyard.
My gardens.
That's this year, yeah.
The colonial ordinance that was talked about earlier really applies to private property and the crossing of private property and the use of private beach property.
Yes.
Really wouldn't be analogous here.
Okay.
But it's interesting to divide this property up into an area where hunting would be allowed without permission, and then another section where it's not allowed. That could be kind of difficult to regulate.
Problematic,
And I think if notwithstanding the town of Raleigh bylaw, where this is government-owned property, you know, there's a government agency in charge of it. And I'm not sure how that would be consistent or not consistent with what the bylaw says. I mean, I haven't read the bylaw, but what it
Right.
sounds like you're saying is that the bylaw gives anybody the right to go to the shoreline and duck hunt without getting any permission at all. And that seems pretty broad.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think we want to be more restrictive than
Okay.
that. So that's one thought to try to give us, and then the other one is to give us, as the government, the power to permit hunting of nuisance wildlife.
Yes,
is the
okay.
case.
Yeah.
Because I could easily foresee that becoming a problem.
Sure, and you should have the right to do that. That's,
Right.
it's pretty common these days.
Right. Yeah, that's the problem, is getting worse.
Okay, well, let me work on two bits of language to address those concerns, and I'll share them with Brent and work on them with him, and then we can refine it for your consideration.
Great. Moving on to number 4, again, I'm just struggling with this language again, but I'm not following, Brent, what can you spell out what the proposed right-of-way cul-de-sac parking?
Well, actually,
Yeah.
it's,
Now, I think that I had seen the gardens, and I had thought about parking.
yeah.
I'm not sure if this is part of that.
On the subdivision plan, which proposed utilizing mostly the pre-existing driveway, which I think has been called Elmwood Drive, that went to the Brad Street farmhouse, they showed access almost, well, while the driveway was still being utilized as a roadway in, they showed proposed access there into the parcel. Then the proposed right-of-way comes down and sort of makes a French curve down to the cul-de-sac, which is actually a proposed extent of pavement of probably 150 to 200
Okay.
feet.
All right,
easy.
so that's what you're talking about.
So I was thinking that, knowing how town resources are and how getting money to develop a roadway is rather tight, that more than likely, if the affordable housing parcel gets built on, that they are probably going to minimize to the most practical extent possible, the actual paved roadway that they have to develop. And so that therefore, the rest of this proposed cul-de-sac, at the most it might be gravel, but I have a feeling it's not really going to be built out, and even if it is built out, I doubt very much they would restrict parking on it, since it would only be servicing, I think it's what, 4 or 6 affordable housing units were proposed
Or,
in there. So people parking along that quote-unquote 50-foot wide right-of-way that then comes down into a 100-foot cul-de-sac lollipop, that as I anticipated that could serve the quote-unquote parking needs
It
for
could.
the community garden parcel without the commission necessarily having to designate any portion of the conserved parcel to necessarily be used.
I would still advocate for putting in some language.
For future
in
options,
this
yes.
conservation restriction that allows for the parking of, say, I don't know, you tell me how many cars might be there on a given day. Because I don't know who owns that road. Is that gonna be part of the affordable housing complex entity?
No, it would be a town road.
It's a town road?
It's laid out as a town right of way.
Okay, so, all right, so it's not gonna be quasi-private in the way I was thinking.
No.
And I just don't know the extent that it's gonna be built out.
Yeah, well, that's
I
what
wouldn't
Brent's
wanna,
saying,
I mean,
too.
it's a great suggestion that he has, I just wouldn't wanna absolutely rely on that.
Right.
Because once this gets to record, amending it is fairly Herculean, and I
Right.
don't really wanna do that.
Right.
So,
Either
Wow.
way, I would suggest that an option for future parking
okay,
still be tied to being adjacent
sure,
to this proposed public way variable width,
I agree, that makes sense.
in order just to use the terrain and everything to kind of minimize the extent that it could be.
What I might
Develop.
suggest we do is on the CR plan, jot out what we would call an excluded area. And that excluded area can be used for the parking of vehicles, and we can specify that on the plan. It doesn't have to be surveyed, it can be sketched, but it will be referenced in the CR when I add language about that, that would be a potential future location for parking if needed.
That sounds sensible.
You know, based on, also with the permission of the commission and all of that.
Right, right. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that would allow me to go out and actually look at the terrain that's in adjacent to
Yep.
where the bulb of the cul-de-sac is proposed,
Right.
and be able to do that, produce an acceptable field sketch
Right.
to be tied in, and basically try to just utilize some of that already,
Existing road.
well, hayfield, actually, to stay in the hayfield up there without, because it drops down and then goes into a wetland system, so.
Right.
we allow parking on our land over by the town beach.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. Parking and.
in an area that's flat and already, field grass and, but,
All right, so moving on to number 5, this is the temporary water line. I think that Brent's suggestion makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure I have anything else to say about it. It just, the permission for temporary water lines needs to be clear, but water distribution equipment is really another kind of, another thing.
And that's not where we wanna go.
That's not where we want to go.
Okay.
I mean, that's my thought.
Okay.
well, I said contemplate a possible
Prohibition
prohibition,
on it, right?
Right, that's what I mean.
because normally that's considered in the part,
Prohibited
in the
acts.
prohibited acts
Right.
where it talks about, basically development of the property, but, they don't. But
Part
they
of
do, there's a specific section that says installing underground storage tanks, so I guess you could, pretty much.
Part of the context of this, Bob, is that the town is contemplating the water supply for the community garden, and considering various options. Temporary water line, from what I'm hearing from the selectmen, or from Brent, I guess is who I heard it from, is that this year it looks like that's what they're going to do. But there are other possibilities. There's a possibility of a well or connection to a water main that's more permanent, or there's a pond there that some of them have their eye on, an old farm pond.
Mm-hmm.
So the issue of water supply for the community garden isn't exactly gonna go away. And I feel like for conservation, from the conservation point of view, we need to be clear about the limits on that. That's my thought. That if it comes down to the community garden versus conservation interests should probably take precedence.
So currently, how is water provided to the site?
The private farmhouse.
From the
Yeah,
farmhouse.
had
Is there
temporary
a garden
black.
spigot or something that?
No, they actually have this, that black plastic like
Okay,
irrigation
yeah, I'm familiar with that.
tubing that
Yes.
ran. And now that's going to be redirected. The water department has told them they have the ability to make a connection where the pre-existing driveway, which is what is the proposed variable with public right of way, that they can run the black plastic line down the side of that driveway and get down to the community garden with it.
Connecting it to a main,
Okay.
that's under, whatever it is, Main Street there.
Yeah.
Okay.
If the property is developed for affordable housing, there would be an actual water main brought down
Right.
within the public way, and that would give the potential again for a closer means for them to tap into. We also asked them to talk to the recreational folks who are putting a ball field on the adjoining property, because they were talking about sinking an irrigation well. Rather, they've done any more groundwater investigations, but they came back saying that the well that they already had near the school had limited yield, and so that
Okay.
redirected the community garden folks to be talking to the water department
Right.
and seeking out of their system supply.
Okay.
So-
I'm not sure we're done talking about this. I know the commission has other business to attend to. Let me work on that a little bit
Okay.
in my head and with Brent,
Yep.
and see if we can come up with something
And
that
so
works.
we've given, but I'm trying to give you today, and I think we've done this, some of the context of where the issues on that one lie.
Okay,
I think the sense of the commission is to try to be as restrictive as reasonable
yeah,
under the circumstances.
okay,
But temporary water lines, which I think the temporary water line this summer, with one that's contemplated, is a shallow ditch, just a few inches. It would be, I guess, removed in the wintertime.
that was my thought.
Or at least drained
It would have to be
anyway,
drained.
Yeah,
blown
minimal
out.
drain. I don't know if
trees,
they'd remove it or not, yeah,
Okay,
they might
yeah.
just leave it in place, but they'd blow it out. But it's not buried, and it's not,
It's like you get ditch witch,
Sure, I'm
3
familiar.
to 4 inches.
Yeah.
it's not proof against freezing, it's not
Right.
deep enough to not freeze.
Okay,
Okay, so that's the thought.
got it.
Numbers 6 and number 7 are just, I'm sure you have no
Yeah, that's no
concerns about
problem.
either of those. So,
I'm surprised about the 10-day language being in there, because this was, in part of this restriction was used with another municipality.
yeah,
So I think actually, I may have forgot to include some modification of that number, because I completely understand where you're coming
in your
from.
last one, yeah,
Yeah.
nothing happens within
No,
10
I
days.
understand. I think I did some work on that with the other restriction. I'm not sure how come it didn't make it into this one, but I'll work on that.
And subsequent to the discussion and what I pasted in my memo, Councilor Pickett also, who I believe copied you
She did,
about the grantors.
right,
and-
I got that.
The right names, yeah.
Exactly, and I got the right signature pages. I didn't insert them in the draft I sent you.
Well,
but
right,
The
yeah.
next round, you'll see the corrections
Good.
made there.
Okay, great. All right. So that brings us to the end of our notes. So
Okay,
you have some revisions to make.
right,
And you're gonna send them to Brent, he'll circulate them to us.
sounds good.
What do we wanna do vis-à-vis the agenda? Do you feel that you wanna be on the next agenda or someone down the road, or do you think we can do this by email?
I think from this point, we could probably do it by email.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
And I need to pull together the CR application as well, which gets submitted to the state
Yep,
with the CR draft.
yep.
So, and nothing needs to be signed at all at this point.
Right.
So we come to an agreement and we're happy. We send it to the state for them to look at. They sometimes turn it around very quickly with very few modifications. Sometimes there's more lengthy ones that we need to talk about. We don't need to include all of their comments. Many of them are just suggestions, improvements, possibly. And we need to look at those, and I would share those with you, of course, and talk about them, and then make further revisions and then it's pretty much done at that point, then we're ready for signature, so.
Okay.
I'm not sure what your timing is, but it's, to me, I think to get to the point of having a final document, we're probably looking at 2 to 3 months or more, possibly. The state doesn't turn it around very quickly.
Well, our timing is quicker than that.
Okay.
Our desire is quicker than that.
Yeah, we will act faster than that, but I understand what you're saying about the state. That is,
Yeah.
that's a wild card for everybody. Okay.
Well, let me take these and get them into some draft form so Brent and I can work on them and then get them back to you. And once I get your okay, I'll put the application together and get it in.
Sounds good. All right.
Okay?
Thank you. Anything else that
Just,
anybody wants to
just so you understand what is, what has been suggested to us is that since we anticipate and hopefully we'll be seeking the acquisition of the Girl Scouts property in Raleigh, and if that proceeds, the plan from the Selectman's office is to seek as much reimbursement as possible from the state by applying for self-help funds.
Okay.
And that therefore, they know that the state is very desirous of us having a CR on this property because of the utilization of Community Preservation Act
Sure.
funds for its
Sure.
acquisition.
Right.
And so we would be
I think I
very
understand what you're
grateful
saying.
if we have something submitted to them.
Sure. I
By
understand
June
that.
18th, I
Yeah.
think I'm told is the
It-
deadline.
Oh, there's no doubt on that. We'll get it to them by then.
My sense is they would be fine as long as it's been submitted to them,
Yes.
because then it's their fault that it hasn't been completed.
Absolutely.
But,
Yeah.
you know, if we're still negotiating it, that might not be quite so well received. so-
No, I don't think you need to worry about that.
Okay, good, great. No, I don't either, because I think these are pretty minimal changes.
Right. I mean, I think, when is your next meeting? 3 weeks?
Every
from-
3 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
If not by the next meeting, then the one following that.
Very good.
You'll have something to approve.
Good,
And I'll get into the state.
sounds great.
Thank you very
Bob.
much.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Do you have a brother who's a lawyer also?
I know, but I know who you're speaking
I
of.
saw something on television the other night, looked up about the right age and,
There's a few Fords around.
okay. Curious,
I'm
thanks.
the only lawyer in my family, thank God. See ya.
So he's the only one in his family, thank God.
Oh,
19 residents and 7 are lawyers. That's too many. Almost everyone's a none of the next generation.
You learn from your generation.
Yes, that was the older generation.
Oh, just for the record, would it be possible to entertain a motion to continue this agenda item to our meeting of May 6th?
Oh, yeah.
Or the possibility of just incorporating into the menu the option of May 7th in case town meeting goes 2 days.
Oh, geez, that's the last one, yeah, okay. Yes, so on the matter just discussed, which is the CR discussion for Bread Street Farm, is there a motion to continue the discussion on the next scheduled meeting, May 6th, or possibly May 7th, if postponed due to town meeting?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. All right, thanks for waiting, folks. All right, so this is the 9 o'clock item. This is the continued, often continued, notice of intent for land off Daniels Road, map 9, parcel 23, Tompkins, Desjardins Trust, Bruce Tompkins trustee. Proposed construction of 6 duplex buildings with associated roadway, etc. within the 100-foot buffer zone to BBW. And let's see, so tonight we have Mr. DeCoulis representing the applicant, and you're from
Janet
Horsley.
Bernardo from Horsley.
Janet Bernardo, okay, very good. And my understanding is that Horsley Witten Group, who were contracted as peer review on this, have submitted a first round of comments and a second response to that round of comments. So Mr. DeCoulis has given you responses to your first set of
Yes.
remarks about it, and so that's where we stand is
Yes,
now to
that is
discuss
where we
it.
stand.
Okay, all right. Who wants to start?
Well, we actually haven't heard any of this. And so, for the commission's consideration, I'm not certainly going to say how to do this, but I was thinking that maybe we wanted Janet from Horsley and Witten to talk about the first review and the issues that they identified. And then Mr. DeCoulis could just go over his responses or his revisions to address those concerns. And then we could go back to Horsley and Witten and understand where we presently stand based on the submittals that the commission has received.
That sounds good. Janet, would you like to tell us?
Sure, let me just,
What we
give
have?
you a card to you. You know who,
Oh, thank you.
Janet Bernardo,
Thank you.
PE with Horsley Witten. Okay, Horsley Witten. We were contracted to complete a peer review on this residential subdivision. And our first letter went out on November 12th, 2013. The project is located in a forested area off of Daniels Road. There's 10 lots with duplex homes in each lot being submitted under the 40B comprehensive permit law. We did our main review on stormwater in consideration with the Mass Stormwater Management Policy and meeting the 10 standards that are listed there. Our first letter kind of spells out 1 through 10 what questions, what things may have been missing from the original design. That included making sure, the biggest thing is there's 2 infiltration basins, to kind of make it a little faster for you. There's 2 infiltration basins, a large one at the rear of the property and a smaller one near the front, right near Daniels Road, abutting the number 53 property. There's also 4 bays that go in front of those infiltration basins, a grass channel that's on this side. The road is elevated, so it's basically sheet flows to a channel that kind of goes along here, enters a 4-bay, goes through 2 concrete pipes into this infiltration basin, which then discharges within 25 feet of this wetland system. This general system has a lot of recharge. It's a large system. It's good soils. It has 2 feet separation. In general, we had a couple of questions for this area, but for the most part, this worked pretty well. This little system, and we had some questions about what they were calling wooded and what they were sheet flow and time of concentrations and miscellaneous things that they were able to respond to. But this system right here is relatively small. It takes a small amount of runoff coming basically in this portion of the property, really abundant property, crossing the road, filling into this infiltration basin, which then discharges towards this stream, this wetland system here, but it goes right over the driveway to number 53 Daniels Road, which has been our big concern for us. And so we had a lot of questions in our first review letter in November regarding this basin and how this flow was happening and how this abutting property might be concerned about that flow crossing over to get to the wetland system. So, do you want me to really step through all of this?
No,
Okay.
no, I mean, I was just gonna say, you're the peer review and you're the technical consultant, so
Right.
trying
So-
to teach us your profession is
Yeah,
you won't
well-
have any luck with it.
Okay, so so part of the 10 standards are they can't increase, they can't have additional. Okay, the first one is no untreated discharges to a wetland system. So they have two systems, 2 outlets, new outlets, but they have treated them both. But we had questions on them, which we've listed here. The second standard is that they have to keep pre and post stormwater discharges to be basically the same by having the recharge systems. They're able to do that. We had a few questions about grading and just summaries and some things that were missing in the calculations that they were able to kind of go through, kind of cleaning up some of the calculations to make sure that they were actually meeting that standard. Standard 2 is one of the harder ones. Everybody really needs to be that one. Standard 3 is about recharge. Having large infiltration systems allows a significant amount of recharge for the additional impervious area, which is this 180-foot road.
800.
850 foot. I knew there was an 8 in there. 850-foot road. The houses, the driveways, that's all that new impervious area needs to get recharged. This large system does a good job of this. This small system is supposed to catch the small amount that's going to this area, but it still is going over this guy's driveway. Number 4 is the TSS, which is the 80%. They have to make sure that they meet for sediment, total suspended solids, reducing any sediment that might enter the wetland systems around that. 5 is if it's a land use of higher potential pollutant load, which is this is not. 6 is if it's in a zone 2 critical area, which there was a thought that it was, but that was determined that it is not. Number 7 is a redevelopment, which it is not. Standard 8 is having an erosion and sedimentation control plan, which they have provided. We had a number of questions regarding that and the details, which they have been responding to. Number 9 is having a long-term operation and maintenance plan, which they have provided as well. Maybe we had some questions about that. And number 10 is requiring the owner to sign an illicit discharge compliance statement, which basically says that as the owner, he or they will not discharge anything like septic systems or
Gray water.
gray water in any way. It's more a commercial standard. Typically, new residential developments don't have that problem. However, a compliance statement is required as part of that water contract and the stormwater standards. So that was our first letter. Everybody with me so far?
Well, yeah.
Good
Right
job.
with you.
Okay.
I
Alright,
followed
moving
along
on.
through your second letter because it's structured the same way, which is helpful.
Yes.
All right. So, you got responses, and
So
they're
then I
noted
got
in your second letter.
responses.
A lot of them are acceptable. And a
Oh, do
few
you want me to
of them don't.
continue? Am I going,
Well,
or do you want him to respond to?
Well, it seems to me, unless Mr. DeCoulis wants to weigh in right now, it's kind of the way you presented it to us. It'd be helpful if you
Okay,
addressed what has and hasn't been
so what?
addressed in your mind.
So what hasn't been addressed in my mind, for the most part, is this infiltration basin here.
Okay.
This is the one I keep coming back to as having the most problems, even though it has only a small amount of watershed going to it. Basically because it is discharging over the abutting driveway. What the applicant has provided, one of our concerns is that the contours in this area are hard to follow, and I'm not sure that they tie back into each other. So I couldn't follow the contours to make sure that this area actually works as it's designed. If they're actually going to have a flow going over this property, they need a drainage easement from this abutting property owner. The outlet of the stone channel, basically there's a little stone channel coming out as the overflow, and it had there's a detail of this, and it's going down to 67.5, but the existing looks like it's 69. Whether there's supposed to be a 1.5 foot jump to slow something down, it seems like there was something not connected there. The drawdown pipe, which is this is a minor comment, needs to have caps, basically, so that the water just doesn't go down. They have caps, and then they remove the caps if you need them for emergency. The direction of the channel flow, which basically the applicant on here, there's an overland flow reach 9R, and they're showing these lines right here. This is what the applicant is stating, that the stormwater from this channel flows this direction. And I have a really hard time believing that. So because the channel is pointing to the driveway, is pointing right here. And it looks like the grades, to me, the grades are going straight this direction, which is basically immediately crossing the driveway and not having as much time to dissipate through a wooded area. So this I have a question about.
Okay.
Well, or conversely, I'm gonna interject here, as to whether the residential driveway would actually act as a berm and then redirect flow, paralleling the course of the driveway, heading towards their residence.
True. Yes, it could do that.
We've had a lot of experience with driveways
Yeah.
becoming inadvertent berms
Yeah.
and actually interrupting and redirecting
And acting like a
what
channel.
used to be overland flow that would head towards the wetland resource area. that
But
was-
you know, either of those results isn't really that acceptable.
Right, and well, probably not for this owner.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's the abutting
That's
property owner who
That's what I
is
need.
all of a sudden the recipient of this is
And
the
he,
issue.
he happens to be within 100 feet of this wetland system, so that is, he's the blocking kind of force. Which, I mean, I just think the design needs to be something that totally has zero discharge, because unless he can redirect it uphill to get to this side, which is working fine, this just isn't large enough of a system to not have any discharge onto this abutting property. So that is my biggest concern. The other concern is regarding this, and it took me a little while to actually find it. This box right here, it has an E in it, but that's the electrical end. But this box is actually the forebay. And I always thought that this was the forebay, but this is just a sediment basin or something. And so this is the forebay, sediment forebay, which it has a label and everything, but because it's just this big square, I didn't understand that. It's for this infiltration basin. But the grades don't really show it, and so this was a confusing design for me. And then the other part of that is this is a grass channel, which I like an idea of a grass channel. A vegetated channel, it slows it down, it's all good. But the driveways between each of them, the detail is showing that the grass channel is about 18 inches deep, and then the driveways, it says it's 9 inches deep. So then you have a stop of the driveway, and I wasn't sure if the driveway was
Each
supposed to
driveway
be-
acts as a
each-
check dam and is gonna cause an impounded area within the grass swale.
So which could work if the design was saying that, but the design is saying that it's a grass channel through the whole thing. And so I was like, well, maybe I'm reading the detail wrong, and it's supposed to be the driveway at the base. But that was my question, is like, how is this grass channel supposed to work with the driveways? And so I'm looking for clarification on that. That is basically, some of these were repeated because they kind of hit the same thing. Should be list. Oh, and there is, I asked them to change the HydroCAD model for infiltration basin 1 to show that it had a different discharge rate. And with the HydroCAD model, it says the area sheet flows to one space, and there's a subcatchment, and then it connects to another place, and it might go into a pond, and then it might go from a pond through a channel, and then it goes to a wetland. So it has this like train of effects that it goes along. So I asked them to make a change for this infiltration basin number 1 originally, which he made the change and showed me that it would still work, but the rest of the change didn't get incorporated through the train of events that happened afterwards. So I was looking for clarification on that.
Where's that in your literature?
That's number 2F.
2F.
Page 3.
Oh, okay, that comment, gotcha. All right, yep.
Is that in the latest one? No,
Yeah, that's in my
Oh, the
second
recent-
letter, my
the
recent
second
letter.
one,
Yeah.
okay. And what was that again, the number?
2F.
2F. All right, yeah.
And then a minor comment is that the operation and maintenance plan should state that the snow should not be pushed into the infiltration basins. That's relatively minor. And that there now isn't a listed discharge statement, but the property owner hasn't signed it, so that's relatively minor as well.
All
So
right.
that's kind of where I stand with my big, I mean, I think this grass channel is something that can be worked out, getting some more detail on this forebay and how these driveways interconnect with this grass channel, whether there should be little culverts underneath them, whether they are incorporated into the channel, whether they become little sediment, ponding areas. As long as the design reflects that, it just needs to. But it's this basin and how it's reaching this wetland system and impacting this property owner that is I'm the most concerned about.
All right, great. So, why don't we start with that, Mr. DeGoulis?
The infiltration basin. Well, we're
Yeah,
studying our options on that,
Okay,
and we haven't come up with any answers
all right,
just yet.
fair enough. That's fine.
But it is a tight situation, no question about it.
What I'm hearing Janet say is that she's looking for a zero discharge solution. And you're saying you haven't found it yet, but you're working on it.
Right.
Is that fair to sum up? Okay.
Either that or or some type of acceptable easement
Well-
and then ability to control
Yeah.
runoff, which we have a sneaking suspicion is not only going to detrimentally impact an abutting property, but may also negatively impact the ability for him to access his residence through the only driveway
Well, yeah, that's
that
right.
he's got going there.
That's right.
Have you talked with the abutter here
From
in regard to
No, I haven't, Kurt, no.
possibly putting another basin on his property at your expense on this side of the driveway?
Right,
might
right.
Solve that
Which would
problem.
work, right, or some
Yeah.
kind of culverting
Mitigate.
arrangement, but, you may say no. Okay, so you're working on that. What are your thoughts on the, what I was thinking of, driveways as check dams? Is that kind of what your plan is? Is
Yes,
that-
yeah. The soils there are all sandy soils.
Right,
And we're confident that we can do the computations to prove that they're gonna drain within the required limits of the stormwater standards, which I believe is 72 hours. So I'm,
But that's not in frozen ground conditions.
Yeah.
well, frozen grounds, there isn't gonna be any flow, is there?
that's true.
Oh, yeah, there's
Well,
gonna be flow, it's gonna immediately go into the grass
Well,
swale and it's gonna
Well, the
freeze. And
stormwater,
every single one of these people is not gonna be able to get out to the end of their driveway,
why is that?
because they're gonna have frozen sheets of ice across it.
I'm not sure that's right. I mean, this is.
Well, the water's only gonna,
Maybe.
water's only gonna be contained within that grass swale until it gets up to 9 inches, and then it's gonna go across the lower ends of each of these driveways.
Well,
I mean,
that's the case
I
with
grew
all
up-
the driveways.
I grew up in a rural environment that we had ditches all the time, and every single driveway had an 18 to 16-inch culvert on the end of it, so that the quote-unquote, the grass swale, which is what they basically were, would flow throughout
Down
the
to
year,
water.
and you didn't have a frozen patch when it went over the end of your driveway, because you get spring rains and stuff where the ground
It's still
hasn't
frozen.
thawed out,
Yeah.
and it does flow within
All right.
those ditches
Well, wouldn't
and
culverts be
freezes.
another solution?
Oh, yeah, and culverts obviously would be another solution. But we could also lower the driveway, couldn't we?
Well, I think the water would still flow across it, and again, in
Yeah.
frozen ground conditions, it's gonna freeze to anything that drops the water
Well,
temperature
then
down below.
we'll have to go with the
liquid
culverts.
And is snow gonna be plowed over that swale?
Plowed over into, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a long 800 feet for the snowplow driver. Where's the snow going, for that matter? Is he pushing it off this side, or? I don't know. It seems to me that both sides of that roadway are going to be covered with heaped up snow. Culverts sound like a good idea.
I think it might be sensible, yeah. Okay.
there is a minor thing on the caps for the infiltration basin.
Yeah.
On the detail sheet, I've shown threaded plugs.
Okay.
Oh, you have threaded plugs?
Right, and the reason I chose threaded plugs is because the caps are loose and vandals can get in there and.
Okay. Can't stick 'em
Okay, I was looking at it and thinking that they were open. And so
Right.
I was just envisioning the water was just kind of going
Right,
through.
right, right.
And so that's why I said they needed caps, because I
Right.
didn't see something that said a cap. But you showed threaded plugs and I,
Threaded plugs
missed that.
on the detail sheet, but we'll also put it on the plan sheet.
well, if it's on the detail line, I just missed it. I was looking for a cap and
Yeah, as
so
long
I
as
might
it's
have
on the
missed a
detail,
threaded
it should be
plug.
good enough.
So, let me see.
I didn't see it.
Right, threaded plugs.
Oh, 3 cleanouts, threaded plugs to grate. Oh, it's like written compared to
I
like
know,
pointing to
right,
the,
right.
pointing to the, okay, so these, are
Exactly.
these the same? Okay,
Right,
3,
yeah.
4 cleanouts, threaded plugs to grate. Oh, okay, that does make sense. Thank
But,
you.
it probably should be on the plan also.
Infiltration basin number 1. Yeah, there's a stone channel.
Is that this stone? Oh, that's this
Yeah,
one,
this
okay.
is-
There seems to be a contour problem there, is what you were saying?
Right, and what we're gonna do there, I'll give you a
Yeah.
20 scale, I'll give you a 20 scale detail of it.
That
so
would
you can-
help.
Yeah, that would help, so,
Sort of blow it up so you can see it. Okay.
So
Right.
presumably this, this is comment number, let's see, 1A3. The comment about the outlet of the stone channel looking to be 1.5 feet different than the existing surface. Hopefully a more clear drawing with the contours
Would
more
show that,
delineated,
yeah.
would show what's going on there.
Show
Yeah,
you-
'cause
and
the-
show you
the
why we did
profile-
that, yeah.
Because do you want to drop it like that?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So let me just back up a second. The intent was that there'll be a 1.5 foot difference?
Is it 1.5 feet? I didn't think it
Yeah,
was
it's
1.5 feet.
Because
Well,
you
it's
show
a
it on
little
the
hard to see.
profile.
Yeah.
So the outlet is a 1.5 foot lower than the surface? Is that what?
Did you have that profile, Lee? Did you have it? Where's that
no, it's
profile?
right there.
Okay. And this is, I'm looking at this. Last section here says the outlet is 67.5,
Mhm.
but the existing grade, even on the profile, you can see is way above that. And on here, it looks very, very close. See, this is 68, this is 70, and then so in the middle, it's,
Is this the existing grade here?
yes, that's.
Okay, and this is the pipe,
Yes,
so you're down.
that's the channel, yeah.
Mhm.
So why, did you wanna make this 67.5 when the existing grade is 69?
I think the existing grade there is 68.
Okay, well, that could be,
Could
be a detail problem.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think that'll clear up when we.
Yeah, once you do a 20 scale, you'll be able to see that.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
right, and the problem may not even be a problem, or even a question. Okay.
Did we even talk about number 4? Or Janet, you might have skipped over this one. Is this an issue about the 30 feet of dense woods between the stone channel?
well, remember, oh, they're 30 feet down.
Number 4.
That is what, in his report, he writes that there's 30 feet of dense woods between the stone, and so when I was, so this is the stone channel, and this is the driveway. So when I kept measuring it, thinking, it's not 30 feet. And I finally found this overland flow reach 9R, which if you measure this direction, it is 30 feet. But I still don't believe it's going that direction. So this is that whole area. I don't really understand where the dense woods are and compared to what's being changed for the grades, because once you grade something, the woods will be gone. And where the driveway is in the relationship and how the flow is getting from the stone channel towards the driveway through the dense woods, that I can't,
Right.
couldn't quite see.
Water normally goes directly downhill, not quite at a 35 to 45 degree angle
Right.
out to the side.
Well, as Mr. DeCoulis was saying to us, they haven't,
Yeah.
they're working on that, they haven't solved that one. but I think we all understand what the problem is.
Right.
Yeah. So there's that problem, which seems like the primary one, and then there's the question of the culverts and the driveways and the grass swale, which seems also significant but easier to solve.
I've got another question about that.
Yeah.
Backing off of what I said earlier a little bit. I assume that the grass swale provides for some mitigation of flow and to the eventual
Right, 'cause we have-
outlet. So if you put culverts in there, that's going to reduce that mitigation.
Well, the grass will still, he has a stone diaphragm at the edge of the road. So basically some sediment will get caught in that, and then it will go down into the grass channel. And sediment will get caught in that grass channel and kind of be stuck within the vegetation. And then it will, the water will flow through the culverts underneath the driveways. And then the next little patch of grass will happen and more sediment will kind of get accumulated. I mean, I wouldn't put a 4-inch pipe underneath those driveways.
No,
I think
no.
it needs to be bigger than that. But, substantial enough so sediment's not gonna clog it. But,
And the water going across the driveways wasn't clean, and no sediment was captured in the driveway surface anyway.
right.
No, because
And-
it's asphalt or concrete, yeah.
Additionally, we have 2 or 3, I think a total of 3 check dams along the grass channel.
Well, and now since he brings that up, we have the same problem with the fact that we've been encouraging the applicant ever since our meeting in July to try and provide us with plans that you can, number one, read by the fact that not all the proposed development activities are condensed on one sheet.
Right.
Well, I have given you additional sheets.
Where?
Yeah.
Because no, we haven't received them. This is what you keep making revisions to a proposed condition plan, and other than.
No, I have,
Seems to me in the first meeting.
there's an erosion and sediment control plan.
Yeah, we got a couple more sheets, but
Yeah.
they still have, but all the proposed development activities are still concentrated significantly on one sheet.
So, I mean, a 20 scale plan for this section would be helpful, but, as we said to you before, breaking out some of this onto separate plans would make it a lot easier for us to understand it. I mean, I can pick out the check dams, because they're relatively large and prominent.
It took me a long time to find that sediment forebay.
Yeah, for example.
That's not as obvious.
Right. So I can sit here and count up 4 check dams.
Well, would it be helpful if I gave you a plan without any contours?
Well, actually, one of the issues is being able to effectively track the contours to make sure that there's stable slopes on some of these stormwater facilities.
Well, I'm not saying to eliminate it, obviously you still need a plan with contours. I'm just saying for simplicity in finding things, the contour lines obviously are not helpful in that respect.
How about a profile of the grass swale? And basically the whole treatment train down to and including the large infiltration basin.
We can do that, that's easy
That
enough.
give you any clarity?
Yeah, so what we have at this stage is he gave a road cross-section here that shows the grass channel from a cross-section point of view. And then he gave me a cross-section of each of the infiltration basins. But the channel and understanding where the forebay is, because this shows the forebay, and it shows the check dam, and it shows the culverts going underneath the roadway. It made me go back and find that forebay.
So that's from here to
This
here.
is this is the forebay, and then it goes over a driveway, and there's a forebay, then there's a check dam, then there's a driveway, then there's a check dam, then there's a drop so that there's a culverts
Check dam,
can go in
driveway,
here.
check dam.
And then here's your culvert.
And then this is the culverts, and then this is the basin.
Mhm.
So it,
What if we had a plan sheet, if this is a 40 scale, right?
Yeah.
What Doug has his hand on right now, that's a 40
Yeah,
scale.
the big
What if
one.
we had a plan sheet that had the front basin area and had the rear second basin area, all at 20 scale.
Can-
Well,
So,
That would be two planes.
Is this, did you draw this
well,
by
or you
hand or
take
is
one
it
of
on
these
a
plan
Oh, no,
sheets,
this is all
and
computer
you lop it in
generated.
half,
So you
and put
can
the
just
two
blow it
basins
up.
on
Oh, yeah.
either.
Okay.
Yeah, either
It's
that or
all
you
layers.
blow up either end of the project, so.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that might help. I mean, 20 scale would be helpful. I mean, you can't do the whole thing on a single sheet, obviously, but there's only two sections we're really concerned about.
Well, I'll give you 20 scales on both basins,
Yeah.
that's easy enough.
Both basins and the approaches to both basins.
Fine,
You
yeah.
know, so the four bays and so forth. Yeah, that might be helpful.
Well, I think that seems to be where,
Yeah,
that's
we're
where all the
some of
concern and
confusion.
Right.
where the
Oh,
issues
yeah.
are.
Right,
and
yeah.
Trying to
As
understand.
well as resulting confusion because of the fact that it is so.
Because some of the contours are just so tightly packed.
Right,
It's hard to
exactly.
see at this scale.
Exactly, yeah, no, I didn't,
Okay.
So the 20 scale will definitely help.
So, other comments? Anyone else? Anyone else? Janet, anything you'd like to add based on these comments?
Well, I think between that and Mr. DeCoulis working to address those concerns, I think that would, should put us in a position where once that's addressed and we're able to see exactly what's going on those plans, I think we could,
I think we covered them all.
yeah.
Because the last one was about the driveways and possible culverts underneath them, so.
Did we talk about this 2F, the hydrocad model down gradient of basin number 1 should utilize
Yes.
the new model with the higher
Yeah, we
discharge
did
rate?
talk
Did we
about
talk about that? Okay. And that
Do you
should-
understand what I meant on that,
on,
on 2F? As you provided me with some new, I had questioned originally
two F.
I
Page 3 of
originally
5.
questioned the infiltration rate that you would use in the hydrocad
Right.
because it's really a B soil compared to an A soil.
Right, exactly, yeah,
And so you gave me a new sheet
right,
substituted for with the B to show that that worked, that the infiltration basin worked, but the remaining components after the basin kept the first infiltration rate with the higher, kept the first basin information, but that should have just kind of gone away. Does that make sense?
right.
the down gradient parts of it.
Yeah.
right?
Right, yeah, the downgrading components.
Recalculated for the
Like the stone channel and the reach and whatever came after the basin should have had the slower, should have had the larger discharge because it was not as much infiltration.
And this is for basin 1, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Basin 2 happens to be an A soil, which infiltrates rapidly.
All right, so anything else anybody wants to add? Okay, what's your pleasure on the next time you want to see us? 3 weeks?
3 weeks.
Okay. I guess you will submit to, you're gonna give us 2 20 scale plans, that's one thing. But you're still working on your redesign of that basin. So in that respect, and you're gonna have to give us some redesign on the culverts if that's the way you
Right,
choose to go.
right.
But that's pretty straightforward.
Right.
And there'll be responses to these comments.
Yes,
The
yeah.
responses to
Right.
that's it, that,
Yeah.
too, yeah, okay. All right, anything else anyone wants to add? Okay, do I have a motion to continue this matter to the May
6th or 7th.
May 6th meeting unless town meeting goes 2 days, in which case it would be May 7th, because we can't meet on the same day as town meeting, and town meeting is May 5th. Although I don't think it's a terribly long warrant, so last time I saw it.
It is did you say it is?
It is not.
Oh, it is
Yeah, I
not.
didn't think it was the last time I looked at it, but I don't know. you know, they had
We
some,
always
they'll tell
prepare
me-
ourselves, though.
They don't call me up and ask me if they can put more things on, so.
Was there a motion?
Is there a motion? There is a
Kurt
motion.
Turner.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there, and is, all in favor?
Aye.
All against? Okay. Thanks,
Okay.
Janet. Thank you
very
very
much.
much for your input.
Thank
Nice
Very
meeting all of
helpful.
you.
And thank you, John. This is ours.
This is ours.
That's about as technical as I can get.
Well,
That's my limit of expertise.
you probably learned a few things.
I learned a lot. Yeah. Well, she's pretty good, and so is John, pretty good at explaining things
Yes.
in reasonably lay
Well
language.
done.
Howard, why don't you move up to the front?
I don't wanna crowd anybody here.
You're not rubbing anybody.
As long as you don't throw popcorn at us, we're all set.
Okay, huh? No airplanes.
Welcome, thanks for your interest. I should have said that sooner.
The last meeting was over before 9 o'clock.
Actually, you know, I think considering this agenda, I think we're doing quite well to be only.
Right on time.
Yeah. Would you like to talk
Right on
and
time.
interact a little bit before we?
Well, let's finish up our agenda, because we do have the open space and rec plan update, which is kind of interesting, and feel free to
Jump in.
throw in your,
You have a copy of that?
Yeah, well, I will just do a little impromptu sets here, and everyone.
first of all, I want to say, Brent, thanks for your Herculean, is that a word? Efforts on this open space plan. I know it's been a lot of work.
Good job.
And your assistant, I know, is
Well, now the consultant.
big on that, and then now the consultant.
Who do we have for consultant?
Nellie Aikenhead. We referred to her by Mrs. Stanadrino, and her experience lists either 10 or 15 years with the Trust for Public Lands as project manager for land acquisition.
Just a question, Mr. Vinet, on that last topic,
Yeah,
in the case of the Horsley Wooden Group,
yep.
how do you decide when to bring that in, or bring in a group like that? Now, I'm assuming that is funded by the town,
It's funded by the
The
applicant.
applicant.
the applicant.
Yep.
And what's the decision process that goes through to have,
It's basically when we feel out of our technical depth.
Brent
So we have
says help.
we have some people on the commission who have some background in some of the fields.
this is,
And then we have Brent, who has a lot of background in many of the fields, but he's not an engineer. And can't, you know, like you said to one of them, you can't do the stormwater calculations. You don't have the.
Well, and technically nor do I want to, because I don't want to be the one certifying
And
the
that's the
calculator
other
this
problem
way.
is, we try hard not to end up acting as the project engineers on these things.
Exactly.
It's not our ability to do that, but it's also just not appropriate. It's for them to give us an application, not for us to work on their application. So in that case, you probably got the sense that it was somewhat complicated technically. So I think it was a while ago that we concluded that we really needed technical help on it.
so it's your job to make sure that due diligence,
Exactly,
whatever project.
that's right.
And depending on the complexity, you'll determine whether that type of effort is required.
Yep, so in that case, we told the applicant, this was probably close to a year ago, that we thought we needed peer review. So in that case, then we solicit bids for that peer review. We got, I forget how many, 2 or 3, 2 maybe, maybe it was 3.
Oh, yeah, in this particular case, it was
I
2,
think it was 2.
because the amount of money didn't exceed and trigger the state procurement requirements for us to get bid. But the commission does make the decision. It's not the applicant's decision,
As
even
to
though
who.
they have to fund it.
Yeah.
Well, not only as to who, but as to
If-
whether the commission will seek a peer review.
Right. So we decided we did want one. We got 2 bids. We presented those to Mr. DeCoulis, the applicant's engineer.
Okay.
We went back to his client and they agreed to pay for it. So then we got a check from them. And then we hire Horsley Witten Environmental Consulting Group, one of the 2 bidders, and then we proceeded from there.
Thank you, I didn't want to take it too far.
Yeah, no,
off.
it's a good
Line
question,
here.
because we certainly don't do it on every,
Yeah,
on every
I was-
matter. Yeah.
You may be already aware of this, but Brent's valuable assistance to us is also enhanced by the fact that he's also a commissioner for the city of Haverhill.
Yeah.
Has been for a while. Right. Broad background and lots of things.
And a degree in forestry, which turns out to be one of the more handy things you know about. I'm always amazed by how much you know about trees and forests and that sort of thing. Because it's not strictly what we do here. A lot of what we do involves trees.
Yet we're impacting forests a lot.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see, on to the,
From our standpoint, one of the things that makes service on this commission of interest and of value is that, as you can glean from tonight, that we both deal with inland waterways and ocean waterways, which is a little unusual in all of just coastal towns. So it's
A little different than where I'm coming from,
which is where? Forget.
Lexington.
Lexington.
Yeah.
All right, so,
So the commission has previously looked at sections 1 and sections 2. But once, we did that prior to us having engaged the services of the consultant. And so in order to have consistency and uniformity, the consultant also reviewed what we had put together for sections 1 and 2. Didn't really substantially change any content, but rearranged just to, again, mostly to keep a consistency flowing through the open space plan.
I have a couple of suggestions, change on under 2.1.
Yep.
First paragraph on the lower left-hand corner of that picture where it says, and from many, a livelihood generated by hunting and fishing. I'd like to change that word to some.
Okay.
It sounds like a bunch
That we're all shellfish.
fowlers and fishermen. And in the
All right, I don't think that's a big deal.
and then the next to last paragraph before the anonymous person there, the first line where it says to ensure that future growth does not decimate, perhaps it would read a little better if we said negative impact.
yeah, I kind of like this.
It's dramatic, but
It's very dramatic.
it's a little
Dramatic
over the,
and
little over the top.
So you just, does not have a negative impact is what you'd like it to be
Yes.
rephrased to?
Negatively
I
impact.
think you're a lawyer or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, or, yeah.
Yeah.
Be the suggestion. Negative. Okay.
My only comment is with this table, if we could possibly keep the,
Headings on each page.
Headings on
Oh,
each
yeah,
page.
that-
just makes it easier.
that's my
Well,
suggestion.
okay. Any comments in regards to Excel expertise or Word expertise? You are definitely directing them in the wrong,
Yeah, understood.
but we're, yes, I'm hoping
Got
to
some
have that.
Word.
Well, as you noticed, I had to handwrite, I think I
Yeah,
hand wrote in the page numbers on some things and stuff. That does now, I did figure out how to do the page numbers on spreadsheets, so that's actually been corrected. But yeah, there's gonna be little things like that. But yeah, so hopefully someone who's more an Excel expert will be able to facilitate that, because I know there is some setting that you can tweak to get it to do that.
Or else you can just.
I
okay
just
them.
was so thankful that the assessor who works with Excel spreadsheets all the time did that for me. Without any complaint at all or whatever, so.
Can you just make a note on some draft that described as misspelled in 2.2?
Oh, I'm sorry, 2.2.
That's one spell check would catch.
Where is this now?
End of the third full paragraph,
Yeah?
almost the last word. The missing.
Oh, you're right, it certainly is this spell. You know, there is all sorts, not that this has anything to do with it, but it probably does. There are all sorts of funky things going on with these documents, and it has to do with the fact that they get passed and handed from different people then to us. I've got one of these things here that absolutely positively will not print from the lower drawer of my printer. No matter how many times I configure the settings to explicitly tell it to only draw paper from there, it won't do it. I have,
like that paper.
and I have phantom spaces that appear in here that are all the normal size of 2 spaces.
That's word.
But
Printer situation.
the only way to get rid of them is to go back and delete the last letter in the preceding word.
Yep.
And then retype the letter and redo the space bar once. If you delete the first letter in the word that follows it, it then tells you later on that that word is misspelled, even though it's spelled correctly, because it won't acknowledge the first letter that you retyped in to get rid of the expanded space. Yes, I hate Bill Gates. I will say that for the camera. His software is not user-friendly.
It's no longer his fault.
That's right.
I've got something on page 5 too,
Are we still,
unless,
oh, we're in section 5 now?
well, I don't know, people may have things before them.
That was
Okay, yeah, well, I was hoping we shouldn't find too much in the section 1 and 2 since we've already done that. So, okay, so section 5 is technically the new section for you to see tonight. And this represents that word
Sorry,
Doug was using earlier.
the first word
Herculean.
is misspelled.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Okay,
And
is
notice,
that
and
what
notice
you were
it's-
talking about?
and notice, yes,
Okay.
and notice it's the first letter
Yep,
on the thing. Yeah. So it'll tell you that
that's fine.
you try to get rid of the preceding space that was embedded before the capital S
Yeah.
by going in and deleting the first letter and retyping it. But then it'll tell you it's misspelled and it'll insist on spelling it that way with another S
Another
for
S.
section after the capital S, because it
Nice.
won't recognize the capital S anymore.
And I see these extra spaces here and there.
Have you tried indenting that as the start of a paragraph? Tried everything.
Usually, if you correct it enough times, it gives up on you. At least in my version.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, we're working on that.
All right, you had something on page 5 too, though, right?
Yes, under the section, in the middle,
Current use?
current use, you say, you're talking about trail
Parcels
system.
owned by the town, yeah.
Trail system has been developed in the Hunsley Hills property. I was just wondering whether we should insert something about and wild pastures.
I wouldn't at this point in time because with the ending point for this document, the Wild Pastures Trail system has not been 100% finalized.
That's probably right.
So I would,
Okay.
I mean, not that we aren't like probably within a hair's breadth of them having finished things, but I was trying to pick basically an ending point for this, and so tried to basically use the end of fall or December of 2013.
You could always say, and is under development for wild pastures. Anyway, your discretion.
Well, it actually does say, somewhere later on when we talk about the open space residential developments, it actually does mention that one component is that they have trails or public access or
Yeah.
somewhere.
Who was it who discovered that part of the old Route 133 roadway is now, I I've never heard that story before.
I never have either.
Oh, you've never heard me tell about falling out of Art Gordon's truck.
No, I have not.
Coming back from Georgetown one time, we went around the curve there.
If
The
the
door
curves
flew open and I was,
Rolling out? Oh, no.
grabbed my belt
Grabbed your
and
belt.
pulled me in.
or you would not be here today, probably.
No, I might have been smarter, I don't know.
Land on your head. So where was this curve? It has to be right near Hunsley Hill.
If you
Well, it's
look-
actually where the horse trail comes out right across from the police station.
If you look at that stone wall,
Yeah.
it was not up to the stone wall, but that was, a standard bound,
Okay.
and it was relatively close to
There's a
that.
big, what you'll see from the street is you can see a large pine tree that has this round thing that looks like a garbage can cover nailed to it.
Okay.
If you go into the woods and look at it, it talks about a horse crossing the road there, because
That's where
the
the road was.
old roadway, which actually comes from the parking lot of Hunsley Hills,
Yeah.
you look through all the bittersweet and stuff, you can look down and you see this stone wall making this slow arc, like a crescent moon.
Not so slow.
And you
Very good.
followed, and that's the old
That's
road.
the old Route 133.
Yep.
Huh.
Country road,
I
or county road, I should
never
say.
knew that. And so it's still in Essex County ownership, even
Yeah.
though Essex County
And-
doesn't exist as a governmental
Right.
unit anymore. Okay,
Page 5, 7,
that's very interesting.
Yep.
recreational potential sort of in the middle. Last line of that
This
is,
is for town landing?
no, Pine Grove School, page 5.7.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong
Page
page,
five.
I apologize, Pine Grove
Or
School,
five
got
or
it.
something.
Recreational potential between
Yes.
the basketball courts and the Congressional Church.
Congrats.
Uh,
Missed that.
Okay.
That's
Division of state.
yes, right.
Yeah,
First Amendment probably.
yeah.
Well, this town started that way, actually. The town and the Congregational Church were the same
Same
thing
thing?
originally.
Oh,
And it
wow.
went on for years that way. And the minister ran the town.
Oh. Oh, wow.
Recreation potential, straight up above, the open space spur bay.
I'm sorry, where are we now?
Same page.
Oh, the same page?
Recreation potential at the top of page 5.7. Last line is open space spur bay.
Oh, yeah.
That's its name.
Oh, it's so marvelous to have a fresh set of eyes looking at these things, finding this stuff so easy, you guys are doing great.
I was very impressed reading this. I said, boy, I'd love to move to this town.
I was very impressed too. I thought that she or you, or whoever pulled this all together, was really very impressive. It's a lot more than we have.
So that's a vernal pool, huh, that they wanted to make an ice rink?
Well, we did.
I don't
We
know.
permitted it as an ice rink one year.
Yeah,
I don't think they ever did it.
they didn't do anything.
I'm not sure they ever did anything.
I'm pretty sure they did.
And also, I heard from one of the teachers that supposedly was
Stuart
going
was supposed to
to.
go in there with heavy machinery.
No, well, what little bit of, with the machinery he already did, and I oversaw that, and that was actually a good thing, because they
Yeah,
took all sorts of roadway sand
Yeah.
that had been being discharged into it, took that out, so. Yeah, I don't know, when I heard from one of the elementary school teachers who supposedly knew about that and the potential of being a pool, I tried to encourage them to, hey, go in there and collect the data for me, I'll help get it certified. They got a lot of issues with teaching nowadays, so.
does that ever dry up?
I don't know, I
I
don't
don't
hang
think
out
it
there a
does,
lot.
yeah.
I'd probably get arrested if I was found lurking around the wetlands next to the school.
Well, a lot of kids go through, yeah, there's a trail there
Oh,
that
well, that
kids
was
go ranging.
on
Yeah.
page 5-8. Just, I think the answer to this is the one you already gave, Brent, which is the timing of this. But the degree of protection for the Girl Scout property, that's, of course,
Yeah,
not the current state of affairs.
Right, but,
But we don't want to change
Yeah,
that.
so
no, I really don't want it, because you've got, like any novelist trying to pick an end to the story, you gotta pick an end, otherwise you'll just
Right.
Keep going.
Well, and it would be, you don't wanna say.
And the problem
Tell us
is that would
consider it,
trickle
but-
through the whole,
Yep.
that would trickle through the whole thing, because it was identified that one of the goals was to, that one of the priority properties to keep an eye on was the Girl Scout property, so.
Sure.
Page 5-8, the same place, under the Girl Scout thing.
Yep.
On the degree of protection, the last sentence, chapter 61, lands continue to be sold to developers at an alarming rate. I haven't found that to be the case,
right,
but I would,
that's
Oh, above the Girl Scouts.
I'm sorry, right, yeah. I'd prefer that at an alarming rate was changed to something more moderate, like on an ongoing basis, or,
Yeah, that came from the original
that's what I figured.
Explain so.
plan,
About-
so.
At a steady clip.
Better than alarming rate.
I find it
Frequently,
Like
often.
most people, I want me to be the last person who moved to this town.
Well, I can actually just delete that and just have the sentence say that 61 lands continue to be sold to developers.
There you go.
Just say that,
Yeah, in fact,
right?
See, under 5.3, unprotected parcels, the last sentence, parcel needs an S. In the first,
Okay, are we still on page 5.8?
yes.
Okay.
That's right.
Where are we?
Oh, yeah, I see, yep, got it. Yep.
Oh, I got it. I read this and I see that kind of language, and I think it was Ed Desjardins. I think he put some of that language in there.
Alarming, right?
Things like that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
He died recently. didn't he? I think it's somebody else. It was
Pretty sure that I'd heard of that.
I like these photographs better than the other ones. What amazes me is that front picture looks to me like the graveyard has as many people in it now as it did back then. Well, Philly settlers must have died off rapidly. You don't have it. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
That's it. See the grave, the
Yeah,
town
it's like-
graveyard back there, town cemetery?
Well,
Real
the
big
thing
is-
is that, oh gosh, that building's still there, I think. That, this whole section in here is full now,
Right.
and it wasn't,
It's all filled in.
yeah.
Looks
That,
extensive.
I was kind of questioning taking, I believe this is taken from Ipswich, right?
Muzzy
I think
Hill.
you're right, probably where the
I was
recycling
kind of
was.
wondering about the appropriateness of that, then I decided to.
What's the building in the foreground?
Well, I got,
It's a house.
I know, but is it in Raleigh or is it?
Bob Mary provided these.
That's Bob.
Well, it's got a good picture of the town.
Yeah,
Yeah, I,
yeah, so the vantage point is potentially Ipswich.
Town hall is not there.
Hmm?
Not
Where's that town hall?
1982.
Is that the church?
The big building
Well, it shouldn't be there.
in 1902.
It wasn't
1902.
Because it was up in,
It was built in
it was
five.
right here, this was part of the town hall. The annex.
Well, the Grange and
Yeah,
that's the, it was built in 1905.
so that's the Baptist church then,
Yeah.
the Congregational church,
Down the way.
Congressional church.
And there's a factory back in the Congregational church.
The one just to the right of the Congregational church.
You say that's still there?
I know nothing of it.
I think it must be gone.
Oh, yeah, it's
Pretty
gone.
good, but
It's
whatever it
gone.
was.
Shoe factory? Shoe factory.
Yeah, must have been.
So with the changes requested, would the commission feel comfortable voting to accept sections 1, 2, and 5?
Yes. We need to get this done.
I would so move.
And is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is unanimously approved. Thank you. And convey your, first, our thanks to you, Brent, because I know you spent a lot of time on this. And to Nellie, who did a nice job, and I know your assistant helped quite a bit too.
Yeah, we try to catch those things we caught tonight, but she left on vacation today, so she came in yesterday, and we worked on some of this, but didn't get all of it.
So,
And right now, sections 3, which I thought didn't have to be written, but it turned out needed to be. And I think sections 6 and 7 Nellie sent to me today, but I haven't had a chance to look at it, so that's why they're not in front of me.
Was the survey ever found or in?
Yes.
Significant?
Well,
I
let me
noticed it was referenced in that.
Let me clarify that. The important thing is that the blank survey form, electronic file, that was found, and the Excel spreadsheet which contains the tally from the survey results was found. But we still only have in our possession one actually submitted, filled out survey from the public. Has not been adequately ascertained which of the committee members has those surveys, but I'm hoping that won't become an issue because you don't have to actually put it in the report.
that's why you tally them.
Problem is, we're getting really tight now, and so I wanted to ask you whether we can possibly, if my working with a consultant, if we get the other sections done, if we can put that together as a draft prior to you folks actually seeing it on May 6th. In other words, at this point in time, it's going to negatively impact our ability to put this together and put it out for public comments if I have to wait till the May 6th or 7th meeting for you folks to approve each section.
So here's a question. Are we sitting as the Open Space Committee at the moment?
Yes.
Yeah. Is there a public meeting law problem with us deliberating on that over the internet, via email? 'Cause,
Well,
you're familiar with these issues.
not everyone, well, these aren't minutes.
Right.
These are not minutes.
They're not minutes, and they're also not an application to a commission.
Right.
I mean,
Right, I
Seems
will admit, I set this path in motion because at the time, it was me, myself, and I working on this, and I'm not an appointed
right.
open space person, or I wasn't a hired
Right.
consultant, so I had so I was using you folks to provide legitimacy to the production of those sections.
I don't see why.
Committees don't well, just let me finish. Committees don't normally adopt that same type of intensive analysis of the things, but they do review stuff, and so I think I could distribute things to you over email, and I think you could just get back in touch with me and say stuff that we missed or whatever, type of thing. I don't think there's necessarily any
Well-
mandate that it has to go to you folks for a vote. I'm sorry, I didn't
No,
mean to
no, no.
interrupt you, Kurt.
Well, here's the, let's do it this way, just so we don't step on anyone's toes. If you distribute it to us and we reply to you only as opposed to the committee as a whole,
Right, you would not be deliberating.
then we're not deliberating even arguably. We're just giving you feedback. So if everybody can remember on their email
Individually.
responses, it comes from Brent to everyone, but it needs to go back to Brent only. So not back to Brent and everyone, because then that becomes a arguably deliberation. Although, so, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I was
You were
thinking along those lines. I was thinking that I don't see a need for us to have a meeting to go over these changes, but that if we got the distribution from you individually by email, that we could submit them to you for presentation at the public meeting. So if we fit within that time frame,
Right.
you could take those into account or present them or summarize them.
Well, that was the next thing I was going to remind you of, because the process is that once we get this thing to be an update of the open space and recreation plan, we need to convene a hearing and put it out, as well as distribute it to other town departments for comments, and have a public hearing ourselves where we, if anyone's interested, will entertain the public coming in. And so
the thought is that.
that would probably be a good thing for us to try to do on the May 6th.
Right, exactly.
Or 7th meeting.
Right.
Because of the tight timeline the town's under for them trying to, proceed on the Girl Scout acquisition.
Right.
And I'm hoping that I will have all the pieces together prior to that meeting. But I don't really know. I've got to find out whether there's any type of requirements for how far ahead of time we advertise.
I assume it's the same as for this meeting.
I'm not
If
sure.
it's an open
I was-
hearing, it has to be advertised in.
Right, but it has to also, we have to set a period we have to have the draft available, and we have to set a period like at a minimum 10-day, if not longer, for it to accept comments from other departments, because apparently the state looks to see that you receive written comments back at a minimum from Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, from the Planning Board. I don't know whether, I don't think they mentioned the Recreation Committee and the Selectmen. I think those are like the three primary ones that they want to see you actually incorporate comments from that, if they have any. I mean, hopefully comments of support.
I would recommend that when you distribute the drafts to us, the draft to us individually, that you also distribute it to all those other parties at the same time.
It's not gonna be.
You
ready.
should not do that until you actually have a complete draft
I
plan.
think that's the way the state prefers it to be done, because we're the committee that generates.
Well, but think about this. We've got other town departments that are just like me. They're lucky they got one person to begin with, and then they would have to somehow deal with when they have a meeting and looking at different sections of an incomplete.
All right, let's do it that way. Distribute it to us. We'll comment to you, and then we'll really aim it at making the May 6th or
Well,
7th
yeah, I'm
meeting.
gonna see, and then I'm gonna try
If we
and find out, what advertising.
Right.
Whether I'm under any strictures in regard to the advertising, but. And I don't know whether that means that we'll have to try and convene a special meeting, because we normally only meet every 3 weeks. And I don't know whether there'll be a push to have us meet sooner if we do get this thing out for comments, say, the 6th. I don't know whether there'll be a push to have us convene a meeting to try and wrap it up before that, so that it can go to the state.
You weren't talking about having, or maybe you were, having the May
Well, I
6th, 7th, a public hearing?
would love to, but I don't think
we can make that.
I don't think we can make that, you'd have to,
I might have a draft plan together for that meeting.
for that
As-
meeting, but we'd have to give
Yeah.
public notice of that
Right.
meeting.
But you then also have to leave an open period
That's what
to
I mean.
accept comments,
Yeah.
because you also want other town departments and stuff.
Right,
to look at.
right, so we might have to have a second meeting after that.
Right. Although I get a sense that usually the minimum open comment period is 2 weeks. So maybe us going to 3 weeks wouldn't be, wouldn't be
Comes
bad.
out about the same.
Well,
Maybe it would work out okay.
if you have one public hearing and then there's still a time for other parties to comment, you have to have a second public hearing.
That's right.
We want to
Right.
avoid that.
If we can, but I don't know that we can. If we have to have 2 meetings, we
We'll
can't
just
do that.
Don't
by
have the
26.
first meeting and just have the second meeting.
But I still think,
Yeah,
if we did the May 6th and then the May 27th, I mean, we'd still be, I believe, okay, because I think it's just the end of May, we gotta have this thing into the state, because the application for state reimbursement is due like June 18th or 16th, something like that.
okay. This is all assuming it passes at town meeting.
Well, yes, but it's, the town needs an updated
Yes.
open space plan.
Yeah, no, exactly.
It
But to
hamstrings us for
address-
other things,
To
not
address
just.
what you just said, Kurt, if we can, we might as well make the May 6th meeting some kind of open space meeting,
Right,
so that anyone who wants to,
Good idea.
we can call, we're gonna be here anyway,
right,
and we are the open space committee
right now.
right now.
The only question I would raise, and I don't feel very strongly about this, is that if we do that and advertise it that way, we might need a different location.
I don't think we'll get it that way. Do you?
I hope not.
Accessibility,
I don't.
Pardon?
why,
No,
accessibility?
I think it just means
Size.
crowds.
Yes, yeah, no, the size of the phone.
I mean, everybody supports open space, they're not gonna come out to tell you that. I mean, I don't think
Well, I
anybody's
mean,
gonna come out to say they
the
don't.
survey supposedly confirmed that
But I
those
don't-
priorities had not changed in the community.
Correct, but I'd be surprised if people will, if a lot of people would come out just to say that they support the plan as written, you know? You might have somebody come out to say that it's all
Why won't you buy my place?
a, by my place, or it's too much government interference, or,
Yeah.
there's, somebody will always say something, but.
What's happening is that the Community Preservation Act Committee is starting to get applicants from more private owners of properties saying they've got historic property and they want preservation money to keep it up. And
Interesting.
I really have no idea.
one of them being the Village Pancake House.
Really?
That's an old Jewett property.
It is a very old property, but it is not especially historic at this point.
As Frank Todd said, there are lots of old Jewett properties in town along Main Street.
Half the properties in this town were owned by a Jewett at some point, and the other half were owned by the Dodds. That's interesting. What would they want CP money for that building? For the roof?
And you're gonna be issue with maintenance and probably doesn't qualify.
They just raised the price of the pancakes. That seems to be a simpler way to go.
Speaking of roofs and barns, is Mr. Sabatini.
All right. More matter.
He hasn't touched that one.
He's called me, but he's away. Now, whether he's out of the country or whatever, he's away, and I don't know if it, but he did call me. And, so, I had not had an opportunity to speak to him about what started out as just being a little place to put in a small little kayak on the farm pond, but now turned into a
Resort.
20 by 70 foot clear cut, what used to be a shrub alder bordering vegetated wetlands.
Oh, that's on Conservation Commission property, right?
Yep.
On part of Bread Street.
Yes, but I had not, because the snow just melted and because, well, I'm not gonna make any excuses. I had not gotten to the part on my list that said hire the surveyor to put in the stakes, and so I could put in posts out there to mark our boundary lines. But I have no well, so it doesn't matter, which is why he was given a notice of violation of the Wetlands Protection Act and the town's wetlands bylaw, because it doesn't matter whose property ownership the activity occurred on. The activity itself appears to be a fairly straightforward violation of the Wetlands Protection Act and the town's wetlands bylaw, no matter whose ownership it might be under.
Judy, correct me if I'm wrong, but my recollection is that this is the third time in the past 20 years that we've issued a cease and desist against Mr. Sabatini. One for his original house way down up beyond your place, and one for where Jellison Road comes out on the main street, and now this. So he can't plead that he's not aware of
Well,
the
we should
Wetlands
probably
Protection Act and what he should do and should not do. He
well,
just goes.
he's been
seems-
invited to come to the commission, and I wasn't distributing this to necessarily get us into
No, I understand. But
deliberations, because we do like to have our process involve the person who we believe had a hand in it coming and addressing the commission, so that we can have a full, appropriate discussion and hearing about our concerns and whether, in fact, we believe the violation is an actual violation.
Well, I have no problem with that, but I just wanted to point out the history of this.
No, I
situation.
understand. Yeah.
I didn't know about the first one, but I remember the second one, Jellison Road. So,
Right, we had the house that we had to try and, we found had an outstanding expired order of conditions, and the bounds for the no cut, no disturb area, which also apparently demarcated a restored, impacted, bordering vegetated wetlands.
So has he done anything about getting the kayak and the sand out of there? Or?
I don't know, I haven't been back down there.
All right. But you did hear from him, so he acknowledged receipt.
Yes, it turned out the email I had for him worked, and
Yep.
even got him wherever the heck he was happening to spend his time, and he did call me.
Why did he raise a question about that date? I didn't understand that.
I didn't understand that either.
Date of the photos.
Well, I didn't send him any photos, I
know.
sent him the MyMap thing.
But that was the email you're referring to, is he said, what date were the
Yeah.
photos taken?
Yeah, well,
And I didn't see any photos.
Right.
And why does it
So I
matter?
didn't understand that, which is why I, couldn't just answer him yes or no like he wanted me to, because I didn't know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
The only thing that occurred to me was that he was going to claim some sort of trespass, but it didn't make any sense.
Well,
Well,
I mean-
in the phone conversation we had, which was, amenable and not antagonistic or insulting or anything, he said something about Rachel Murren, who used to be on the property, because I believe, isn't his residence on like Kittery Avenue or something, so maybe he's a neighbor of the
Was.
Murrens, and
yeah.
he was talking about how the Murrens, as a farming operation, impact and have their farming activities occur within bordering vegetated wetlands. Now, I don't know whether there was some sense in his mind that since he bought a farm, he therefore enjoyed the same exemptions to some of the regulations under the Wetlands Protection Act by farming, but that point would be rendered moot once we establish that this area is actually within the conservation area, because as well as the fact that I don't believe he's currently engaged in any agricultural activities. Other than the fields being mowed, I haven't seen any sign that he's raising a crop or raising livestock there.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
Well,
As
yeah.
to this violation, really. I mean,
No, again, I didn't, he brought that up, and that really wasn't a substantial part of the conversation.
Basically irrelevant.
okay. So did he pick a time to come in, or is it depends on when he comes back?
He said he was gonna be back at the end of May, so this
End of
may
May.
possibly occur at the May 6th or 7th meeting.
End of May or end of April?
I'm sorry, end of April, I'm sorry. He would be back the first of May.
Well, we'd certainly like to see him. talk to him about it, I think. Okay. Do we need to endorse this?
No.
Do we?
Unless you wish to take further action and actually issue an enforcement order.
No, no reason to really, that I can see. All right.
Well, I mean, it may rise to that because it is the clearing order.
I get it.
Plus filling of wetlands.
Um,
You put beach sand in there.
Yeah, that's probably rather minimal at this point in time. We sort of already, can I segue to the community gardens then? And
Yep.
just to get confirmation, so I'm told, although it's only hearsay, but those are the wooden tops, wooden
Tables.
tables.
Tabletops, yeah.
That I'm told the garden club deposited out there. Those have been out there since November. It's smothered an area and now also have two metal gates that have become associated with them. And this is the lawnmower and the rototiller, which have also been out there since last November. So my suggested strategy, if the commission concurs that that's an activity that doesn't necessarily go along with the community garden plots, and that materials which are smothering the grass out there and then the other stuff that may have fuel oil and stuff in it that's unattended should not be stored on conservation land. My proposal is to seek the assistance of the highway department, remove those materials to the highway department area, and to post a notice out on the bulletin board of the community gardens stating that those items which appear to have been abandoned have been removed due to the fact that they are not appropriate for conservation land and have been removed to the highway department where they may be retrieved.
So the only thing I'd say to that is, does somebody know somebody in the garden club?
I had a conversation with the Agriculture Commission who said that they were the ones who told me that that's where they came from and that they were communicating with them to get them taken care of. And
Well, there's gotta be a
That
phone
was
number we
last-
can call for them. They just need to come get them. We shouldn't, the highway department shouldn't have.
I don't know who to call.
Anybody know? Anybody in the garden?
I thought,
Great Marsh
Kurt,
Garden
I
Club?
thought-
Judy and I are members of the.
There's
I'm
gotta be a
not.
member here.
But I, I assume we're talking about these things and not the rototiller.
That's
Just
correct.
these things. And they want them, I mean, they
I
could
was
probably
told
just
they
store
use them
there.
for their plant sale.
Yeah, the plant sale.
But again,
members-
this is all hearsay. I mean,
I
I don't
understand.
have
It's
anybody
just-
giving me direct testimony saying, yes, I'm with the garden club and yes, I use those for our plant sale. And I decided to store them here because I
Well-
didn't know what to do with them.
So you don't, nobody here knows who's in
Do
the
you-
garden club?
Do you want someone to call?
Sure, or give me the name of
I'd like to
contact
I-
information, I'll
I'm
call.
not sure, other than that, she's a member of it, but our neighbor Sally Schwartz is a member. Also,
Sheila Clark.
yeah, and,
I forget who's president at the moment, but I can send you an email on that, Brent, if you'll,
Okay.
if
I
you'll
see.
remind me by email.
Sarah Burke, David Jakewith.
I'd just kinda like to make that call before we put
Sure.
the, put the.
I would
highway
just assume
department-
before I start
Right,
lumping
right,
them around,
right.
yeah.
Exactly. It's
But I
not
do
just to be
believe
nice
the
to-
lawnmower and the rototiller.
Those
need
gotta
to
go, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Right.
different, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure why these got
Sorry,
left
you
here,
want-
but I'm
you
sure
want those?
they
Sorry.
want them back.
Couple of garden hoses,
If I can't get them over to the highway department, yeah.
rain garden hose.
But they've been sitting out there for 4 months now.
Again, I'm not gonna remember names too well. You know the people down the street.
We're gearing up to do
who,
their,
Yeah,
did
their
that
thing ought to be
long
coming up
term
pretty
thing,
soon,
getting
yes.
rid of
we're looking for volunteers, if anybody
the-
Are they?
he took 'em to
On
court.
Kittery Avenue?
No,
help out
Oh,
with the
oh.
sale.
he took 'em to
Good
court.
sale. I hold my stuff there.
Oh, real, oh, on Central Street here. Really?
Cousin. Not
Oh.
his cousin. Same name.
Oh, yeah, I can't think of it either, but I know.
Yeah.
immediately pull it.
You get the
out of the
feeling
water.
this is a little bit of a small town sometimes.
Yeah, but.
Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah, well, that's
I mean,
good.
not all of
That's
us
good,
know
that's part of the
everybody.
reason we moved here.
But the people who have been here a long time, which is mainly these three, they know everybody. Judy's been a member for how long, Judy? This commission?
A long time.
28 years or something. ridiculous like that.
It's in the town report now.
It is.
Put it in. I put it in.
Kurt's been a member 20 years.
25.
25, yeah.
Judy's been here longer than I.
That's right.
Since I was about 15.
Good to have that knowledge.
It's great.
Very good.
And we would
You want
we would be
that.
missing a lot if we didn't have
You
that.
better believe it. You may make.
And we have applications on properties or by people that institutional memory gives us a lot that we would never be able to figure out through the files. Especially from a while ago, the files are not in particularly good order. And, you know, some of these things go back 40 years now. Anything else, Brent?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against? Thank you. So thanks for sticking around. They don't usually last this long. Sometimes they